What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast, episode 323. We are back in full trio form here with the lawman himself and my favorite mensch, Mr. Tie Guy Travis. How we doing this morning, my friends?
I'm doing okay. I'm going to try to bring some positive energy here. My Lions had a tough outing last night.
Nice.
They did. They
Love
did.
to see a disappointed Hogue.
Oh yeah. I was even saying last night to my family that Hogue has ended the last several weeks with Go Lions, and last night was supposed to be their kind of coming out and reaffirmation of them being the number one seed and the Super Bowl favorite, and pretty much the opposite happened. So I'm sorry, my friend.
Go Lions has become Go Home Lions. But what really makes me sad about that story is, like, I went out yesterday morning with my wife. We had a lovely time. You could see everybody wearing their Detroit Lions gear. It was a very excited fan base here in Southeast Michigan, and it is not anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
It's when you go out around here, anytime the Chiefs are playing, it's just literally like red everywhere. You see Chiefs stuff everywhere. So I'm waiting to see if they obviously lose and don't win the Super Bowl this year. It's gonna be interesting.
After watching the Chiefs game yesterday, it was before the Lions game. I'm not sure the NFL is going to let them lose. That was some of the most awful refereeing I have ever seen.
Fair enough. But we are here to talk about games, not football. So
football is a game.
Can you imagine if we were here to talk about football, how useless I would be in this pod?
Travis, I want your take on the defensive injuries to the Detroit Lions secondary. Come on.
I wish there were more of them. Not enough.
Oh, no.
More's always more. That's always been my take. Hell yeah.
Well, we're back in our trio form, of course. We've got quite a few things to talk about today, actually. We've got obviously some games to get through I want to touch on. We've got the Switch 2 officially kind of being revealed this week, which we'll talk about.
I mean, duress.
Yeah, right. We've got PlayStation. Just we'll talk about them. We've got the Xbox Developer Direct, of course, and some fresh rumors of that. But before we get to that, I want to talk about a couple things and just a couple shout outs to give. So first, shouted out a few people lately, and obviously we've had guests on the show and different friend shows and everything else. So a couple people I want to shout out. First, I want to shout out our friends over at the Nerd Chat. We did a fantasy. I'm doing my first fantasy video game critic, whatever the hell they call it, thing this year. Travis is in, Eric is in, friends at XEP, Trophy Room are in as well. And Nerd Chat is just a bunch of good guys who podcast every Thursday night, and guys who have been friends for many years in their lives. And it's just a good time. Good guys, good people, good show. So if you want to just hang out, talk video games, and they talk food as well, that's Thursday nights. Shout them out.
They do talk food, like as part of the agenda of the show.
As part of the show, not like Bitcast where we just kind of tail off into food conversations.
That's right.
And also shout out, of course, to Mr. Alex Segovia. We know him well here. Good friend of ours, SG member, lots of reviews. He's added Don Lionheart to his show, the X Button podcast, which you can find on YouTube as well. And, just wanted to shout him out for the awesome work he does for SG and the conversations we have, even though he thinks Rebirth is amazing and has lost half of his life to it. And,
weird take.
Hogue's tried to coach him through that, but unsuccessfully. And, he'll get there at some point.
I allow everybody their own opinions on these things. And Alex has been very forthright in what he likes and doesn't like about Rebirth. So I can more than respect his position while still acknowledging that I don't agree with it.
Of course. So with that, before we get into the full topics, we've got our usual. So let's give a shout out to Tide as well with, setting us up for the Switch 2 conversation today and a little Mario Kart 9. And Travis, as always, I just, love your look in this one, my friend.
Hell yeah.
Just a little Toad. I have a huge nose for some reason, although so does Hogue. Even in Mario form, Hogue was adorable.
I think you two look very much like your characters. They just had to slap some mustaches on you to make it work. And obviously hair for you, Ains. Sorry, Rip. Hogue just looks like Dr. Mario. Well, Dr. Mario doesn't wear glasses, does he? So he's just
I really don't know.
Nearsighted, and I don't think they could figure out what to do with me.
Yep. You. I don't know if that's a mushroom hat.
Can you do a Toad voice?
Yeah.
Travis, is that in your repertoire?
I don't know if I know what Toad sounds like.
What?
Like what game does he talk in?
The Toads talk all the time.
It's very high pitched, right?
Yeah.
Well, are they voice acted?
Mario Party, yes.
Oh. I guess I'd have to hear it. It's not coming to my brain right now. I'm actually having a Mario Party Jamboree party this week. That's what I'm doing on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which is
excellent game. That's what he would want.
He would want that. MLK. I think that was part of his speech. He's like, can't we all just play Mario Kart together? Why do we have to have separate pods? Yeah,
separate pods.
I get it. Yeah.
Tide, as always, thank you. Appreciate you.
Cool.
Speaking of which,
what's your go-to character in Mario Kart? That's what I want to know. What are you guys driving?
I'm a Donkey Kong.
Yeah, you look like a Donkey Kong. How about you, Hogue?
I'm a Kong.
I don't really have a go-to driver in Mario Kart.
Don't lie to me. What are you doing?
I like variety.
I hate that he's always lying on this podcast. It's crazy, Ains. It's crazy. Can we just get a little truth out of him? A little honesty? Who do you roll with in Mario Kart?
I honestly don't.
All right, it's what
comes first to mind.
Bones.
If you think of Mario Kart, who's the first driver that pops in your head?
Yeah,
Mario.
God, dude, it's like
I know.
It's like I know.
How come Mario is not an acceptable answer
to
Mario Kart?
I'm okay with you. Like, I know you lie to us all the time, but like the fact that you lie to the people, the viewers, the people who are super chatting, coming up every week, just to get to know a little bit of Hogue, and you won't open up. You won't open up, and it hurts.
I don't main these games. I play variety so that I can try a bunch of different things. But I don't play a ton of Mario Kart anyway.
Oh, we'll talk more about Mario Kart soon.
Sad life.
Yeah, we'll see.
Sad.
Travis, who's your main then?
I think I probably tend to do Wario.
I could see that.
Yeah, Mario's good, man. Disruptor. He's got a mean drift. It's just good. It's overall good. Good roll.
Yeah, that's why I'm a Donkey Kong guy. He's got that. You got to finesse it, but he's got that top speed. Once he gets kind of barreling through, pun intended.
Yeah, nice. Very cool. Very good.
Yeah.
He should ride in a minecart, though. That is my one criticism about his.
That would be cooler.
I think it would make more sense. Yeah. It's already kart themed. It's part of his brand, his IP. He should be in a minecart. That's always been my criticism of that.
All right.
Part of his IP, like by accident.
Yeah, Donkey Kong Country, I guess, later. Yeah. Let's get to these super chats. We'll be talking more about Mario Kart because I got some thoughts with the tease we got.
Donkey Kong.
And Donkey Kong. Let's see. Vintage Willow came in super early before the actual show started, gifted memberships, because she said that she's replay crew later day because it's Comic-Con weekend. So I wished her an awesome day at Comic-Con. And as always, thanked her for the generosity. So Willow, after you watch this back, thank you very much. And I hope you had a great day at Comic-Con. Our Comic-Con's not till late March this year, so I got a little ways to go yet.
Nice. Also, I received one of those gifts. I'm sorry. I wish there was a way to blacklist me from her gifted memberships. I received one.
Oh, that's okay. It just supports the channel, man. Yeah. Sorry. Googleman
81 offers 10 euros and writes, saw a pretty cool cinematic trailer for The Blood of Dawnwalker.
Sir.
It does look cool. Now, if we actually see Ass Creed Shadows released, Switch 2 has more buttons. Yay. Very cool.
Well, you weren't here last week, Travis, but we talked obviously about Ubisoft with Mikkel and Assassin's Creed Shadows on March 20th. Ubisoft.
Oh, me. Okay.
What?
Nothing.
Hogue, am I losing it, or is he just throwing wrenches at me?
He's trying to make a pun. Travis does this from time to time. I'm just gonna let him have his bits.
Yes, Blood of Dawnwalker. If you haven't seen that, definitely check that out. You can find that kind of all over. We have it up on our site, of course. This is from Rebel Wolves. I think we touched on that last week of the studio of X. CD Projekt Red developers, and great debut. And hopefully it lives up to expectations.
Yeah, no,
As
it's
we
a
all
really
know,
cool video.
Vampire games have a really good history, and there's never been a bad vampire game.
I'm sure that's not accurate, but there have been a lot of good ones.
I don't know if I'm prepared to deal with him today, Hogue. I may need your assistance.
That's what I said before I logged in today. It's like, am I in a mood to deal with Travis for an hour?
Yeah, I don't know. You guys didn't see the pre-show, but I put him in the deep end. I gave him a cold plunge really early on, so they're still dealing with it.
We're glad to have you back, buddy.
You're losing your bench status actively.
Oh, what?
Yep.
I don't know.
Google
if you're
man, thank
to
you.
That to me.
Google man, thank you. As always, we will get to the Switch 2, of course. Appreciate you, Tao.
Tao Zochi has been a member for 26 months. That's too long. Sup, chat. Sup, Bitcasters. Foodcast incoming? Question marks and exclamation points all in one. But is pizza really a pie, though? Not really. Later, guys.
Pizza's my football food. Why are you doing this to me, Tao?
He just wants to know, is it a pie?
I will tell you, if you're in the New York area back east and you go to get a whole pizza, they will call it a pie. You have to ask for a pie.
I would say it meets the definition of a pie. It's got
I don't know what the definition of a pie is. I
mean, I can only tell you I don't really like any pie, but I like pizza. So if it is a pie, it's the best pie. Is there a pie better than pizza? Fight me.
Moving on. So, random name. Thank you, Tao.
Random_name has given us $4.99, accompanied by this comment. So, I am currently replaying majority of the PS1 first party right now on The Last of Us Part 2. Makes me want a survival game with gameplay that universe. Very cool sentences.
Yeah, if only they make like a Last of Us Online game or something, that would be interesting.
That wouldn't work.
They should make a live service Last of Us.
I feel like I'm talking to quite a few people who are going back through some of the modern PlayStation first party catalog. Ghost of Yotei coming this year, and revisiting Tsushima or Horizon on the PS5 Pro and various things. But we're going to talk a lot about, well, not a lot, but we're going to talk about PlayStation today because, so we'll get there. But yeah, I wouldn't mind a survival game like that. I think you've got your Daisies of the world. You've got those types of games. But, Last of Us is a little unique. And
I was actually wondering at the question because I wasn't reading it as Survival Crafter. I was like, isn't Last of Us already a survival series? You're scrounging up things. You're fixing up your guns. You're trying to find ammo and kill zombies.
Usually survival games have some sort of like meter you have to maintain. Like
I don't think that's a usually, right? Survival horror starts well before meters, and survival crafters have meters. There are no meters in survival horror games, Travis.
There's health meters. That's a meter.
There's a health meter. Yeah,
You're already wrong. Whoa, he's wrong already.
You nailed it, buddy. You got me.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So random name. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Bacon.
X Bacon Gammon is $4.99. Just wanted to thank you guys for joining us on the Nerd Chat. Sorry if we left you shocked, Travis, with our food choices. Dana special. You did leave me shocked with your food choices. Just to be clear, I'm not being weird here. Their food choices were 15 junior bacon. What were they? Junior cheeseburgers? Yeah, 15 of them. All right. That is shocking, I think, no matter where you're from.
Is this one of those where you switch the qualities? So is it 15 junior bacon cheeseburgers or one 15-pound full bacon cheeseburger?
It's, I think... Oh, interesting. No. They said 15 of the burgers, but I think they were the junior ones, the smaller ones.
Yeah. So the thing is, and I'll call this out now because I spoke way too quickly on that show. So Daddy Diwali, or Danny Diwali, we'll call him Danny Diwali. He loves that. Who is the host of Nerd Chat. They are at 350 subs on their YouTube. When they get to 500 subs, he's going to eat 8 junior bacon cheeseburgers on air. So I told him I would join him in that venture. It was 8.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like 15 or something.
I would join him in that venture.
Too many. I mean, 8 is too many cheeseburgers. I'm sorry.
8 is going to kill me. Yes, to be clear. I don't eat fast food, and it's going to be bad. I'm going to have to pay for that. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I've that you will have life-changing diarrhea. That is absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway,
phrases I didn't need to hear on my Sunday morning.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Life-changing diarrhea, dude. That's what we should rename the show to. Don Lionheart gives $2. Did my 3 a.m. SC disappear?
It sure did, Don. Don't super chat again. Sorry.
Tears.
Crying tears.
Oh, he did a 3 a.m. super chat. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, if you super chat too early before the show goes live, they can disappear. It is not in my list. So don't super chat again, Don. Just type it in. I'll pull it up. Thank you.
Yeah. So
all right.
I guess Don Lionheart has reached apotheosis with his early super chats and is now gone so far that we no longer recognize his super chats.
Here you go. We got it right here. He said,
"Hello, Bitcast. Been playing the Horizon VR game. It's cool, but Travis, how do you not get super sweaty with the headset? Hogue, Marvel Snap Ban, go!"
No.
Said hello. I
no, not you. He's trying to poke Hogue with what we talked about prior to the show.
Poke Hogue. Now that should be a segment. Poke Hogue. And we all just like say things to Hogue and see if we can get him to leave the show.
Hogue, this is why we did 90 minutes last week. You see?
It was perhaps a slightly smoother
and operation. It was the most boring show we've had. Okay.
Oh man. I'm sweaty with the headset. So any commentary there? He's obviously
let me answer
PSVR
that. 2. Been playing the Horizon VR game. Meh. It's cool, but Travis, how do you not get super heady with the head sweat? The answer is I do get super sweaty, but usually only when I am playing a workout game wherein I'm like expecting I'm going to sweat a lot. You just got to dab. You got to have a plan. And hopefully you do not have a fabric lined like headset. Like they make ones that are like for performance where they're like rubbery. And then it's really easy to wipe down. And you don't have to worry about it like sinking into the fabric and changing its color and getting all gross.
That's how the PSVR 2 is. Yeah.
I think the PSVR 2 has that. Although I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever sweat in the PSVR 2 specifically because I tend to work out on the like wireless headsets where they're a little bit more. But yeah, you just sweat, dude. You take that headset off and your face is just wet. It's very cool.
It's very cool. Don. Cool. Thank you very much. Sorry about the hiding the super chat there. Let's get to wow. Oh my God, what?
The globe behind Ains. That is a great username. Offers €2 and writes, "Where did you put me? Why am I not in this podcast?" That is my favorite comment of all time. I love that. The globe behind Ains. Where'd you put it? It's super chatting you, and it has its own money, and it uses European currency.
It would have to be euros.
Yeah.
Oh man,
it could be anywhere. It's a globe. It must have all sorts of currencies.
Oh my goodness. All right.
Wow.
I'll have a conversation with it in a second.
Behind you? I don't remember the globe behind you.
Yeah, the Indiana Jones globe.
Oh,
which
yeah.
Literally that is a picture of to a T.
Wow.
So,
yeah, they literally screen capped it and used it as their profile photo. That is amazing. I'm jealous I don't have like the Master Chief helmet behind me or the Grogu or anything. That's kind of insane, but yeah. Love it. The globe.
That's awesome.
Thank
you for that, whoever globe over there. Thank you for your super chat.
Very cool. Where did you put me? Cyania, right? You became a YouTube member.
Yes, thank you very much. Sianya. We'll go with Sianya. Thank you very much. Welcome to SG.
Photo.
Appreciate you.
I hope that's a dog. Oh God, I hope that's a dog.
That is a dog. Yes.
Please don't be your face. Okay.
What?
I'm sorry. I thought it was a dog, and then I thought, well, maybe it's their face, and I'm being really rude because I can.
No.
Okay, it's a dog. Good to know.
Okay. Question.
Arctic Wolf, kind of a dog, offers £1.99. What price would be too much for Switch 2?
Whatever Hogue said.
Yeah, whatever Hogue said was too much.
It's gonna be $4.99, folks.
No, it's not. That's crazy. I think $4.99 is exactly the price where I would be like, okay, that's unreasonable. I think my prediction of $2.99 is looking low. I still think that Nintendo
$3.99, boys.
target there.
I already picked out my toppings.
I think $3.99 is probably, looking more likely now.
It's going to be $4.99. The boys in finance are going to say, why are we leaving $100 on the table? It's not going to materially impact demand. So it's going to be $4.99.
All
Okay.
right. We
And
will
if you're
know
wrong, do we get
not
to
anytime soon.
Yeah.
So we'll come back to that.
No, because we have to talk about the worst announcement for a piece of hardware in history. So we'll get there.
Oh, boy. Alex. Thank you, Article.
Alejandro Segovia offers $1.99 to write Jim Ryan Harikari the rest of PS5's generation. Appreciate that you used Japanese suicide for his Japanese corporate undertaking.
To be clear, Alex,
cool.
he's not in charge right now. It's still the Herman Holst era over at software.
Yeah, we were talking about that in our Discord that, Holst has, for lack of a better phrase here, blood on his hands as well with some of these decision making. So we'll talk about it.
I guess it just depends how bad the games were shaping up. We will likely never know. And so a lot of these decisions may have been well-informed, good decisions.
Yeah, but he was still creative when they were initially greenlit and then proceeded through process, right? So yes, it might be a perfectly reasonable situation to cancel them now because they sucked or it was the wrong direction. But it was the wrong direction beforehand, and now you've spent 5 years of your generation and however many hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's a tire fire however you look at it.
Well, how are you supposed to know that it's the wrong direction before you try it?
Travis, these people are getting paid to be executives, to set the direction of the ship in the ocean of market. They failed. And not only did they fail, they set the wrong direction and decided halfway there. There's no chance to recoup any of this investment. And they've lost time, money, and a chance to really make a difference in their console positioning. So this is an absolute disaster for Sony. Absolute disaster.
It's a creative undertaking. So you never know what's going to work until you try it. So I don't
think there's any disagreement there. I think he's just saying, regardless of what they thought, it was the wrong move.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're responsible for it.
They're canceling the games. Although I think the PlayStation's doing fine.
They're selling consoles just fine, but they should be building up a fortress PlayStation right now. And they are not. They're against nothing. They're against a Switch that's a decade old. They're against an Xbox that's not trying to sell console units anymore. And yes, they're selling well in that environment, but it's a disaster on the software front, and it should be double or triple. This should be a PlayStation 2 era for them. This is all lost opportunity.
It's partially because the PS5 is an Xbox.
As is the Switch 2.
This is an Xbox.
As is this podcast.
Is this podcast an Xbox?
Oh, yeah.
I should be getting kickbacks if this podcast is an Xbox. Like, I should be making some money off of this. For real.
For real. All right. Let's get to, thank you for all the generosity to kick us off this morning, but we've got some games to talk about. So let's get to them. Yes, we do. You reviewed a little game called Aloft, which is now up, and I know literally nothing about. Would you like to touch on it, sir?
Very cool. A lot of the words I'm about to say, you're absolutely going to be overjoyed to hear and very excited to play. Aloft is a cozy survival crafting game. You're out? Really?
I'm out.
Really? Ains is out. Interesting. Okay.
I'm not out, but I have to admit I didn't like the look of the screenshots on this one.
Yeah. It is, well, first of all, I should say it is an early access game. It is not done. It is not fully out. It's a small indie game. I'm sure a lot will change in the time that it is in early access, but they're asking for your money now if you want to play it. And so we reviewed it. It is an interesting cocktail of multiple genres, the kind of usually uncozy survival crafting type game, combined with the very cozy mechanics of, raising animals and gardening and hanging out with friends, and very low, danger. It's a very chill game. You're never sweating or concerned about anything, which is very, anti-survival mechanics usually. And its main kind of twist, if you will. Sorry if I'm trying to remember this. This game happened over the break in December, and it's been a long time since I played it. But its main twist is that it takes place in a floating archipelago of small land masses, and you fly around in a wingsuit. And if you find an island that you like, you can put sails on it and a rudder and some floaters to make it go up and down, and you can turn it into your own personal pirate ship. And so as a 8-player multiplayer game, you can have yourself and 7 others flying around an explorable, hovering world above the clouds on pirate ships of your own making that are formed out of islands that you found scattered about and decided to turn into your base. And you can keep all of your stuff with you on it, and you fly around and you explore the world.
Okay, but what am I doing?
I was going to say, what are you flying around for? To find more stuff, or
you're flying around to find more stuff primarily. Your goal is to get to the center of a storm. So you're in the floating world, and you start on the farthest outreaches of the circle, and you're trying to get to the center of the storm. But to do that, to get past every layer, you have to upgrade some part of your ship. You have to like make the sails stronger or make the hull more robust or whatever to like fly through, so that you don't get torn apart by the storm. And so you start out with like exploring these outer islands, and you're like collecting materials, finding animals to domesticate, and getting supplies and making food and all that stuff. And then as you get closer to the center of the storm, they start throwing more stuff at you. There's like an area where everything's really hot and you burn up unless you have the right equipment and that sort of thing. There is combat because some of the islands that you find are corrupted by a fungal infection. And the island looks sick and corrupted, and you have to fight off mushrooms and cleanse the island. And then as you do. And then after you cleanse it of the fungal infection, sometimes you will find islands that are out of balance, and you have to repair their ecosystem by like planting more trees or giving it more wildlife or whatever. You basically have to like make the island healthy before it's usable, before you can find resources on it or turn it into a pirate ship or whatever. And so it's kind of got this cool like repairing nature and fighting back this evil fungus virus that's happening. The combat is very repetitive and extremely bad, but again, it's an early access game, and combat is not like you dying has no consequences. You just respawn back on your island and you go right back into it. So it has a very cozy vibe. I like the idea. It is a very unformed game. It performs absolutely terribly on a high-end PC. Rocky frame rate that goes down to the teens. When you're flying to new islands and stuff. And it also does not have an ending. It basically stops right in the middle. But in the game, the main thing that you're trying to do at this point in time in early access is you're trying to track down a floating dragon whose body is made out of small islands. He's like a floating mythical beast, like, one of those tortoises you see with an island on their back, kind of like that sort of same vibe. And that dragon has been infected with a fungal virus and is basically flying around the map at high speed and is very hard to track down. And your goal is to level up your equipment and your island enough to where you can track him down, because you have a tracking piece of technology you can make, and also are fast enough to actually catch up to him because he's real fast. And you have to land on each segment of his body and heal him. And then the game basically, in the early access version, it ends. It's not the actual end of the game, but it kind of feels like the ending in the early access version. When you heal him, he then becomes a buddy that flies around, and he's like this giant Leviathan creature that floats around and is cool looking. And that's the game. Just it's got a really unique premise. Hanging out with your boys and floating around on pirate islands is cool. And it combines two unlikely genres in a unique way. I very much appreciate the game, but in its current state, I would probably say you should probably wait on this one for it to get to 1.0 and not have the technical issues and actually have an ending and all that stuff. They're clearly still working out the kinks on this one. I believe I gave it a 6 out of 10, which means it's okay. But I have no doubt it will be a better game in the future. And I really appreciate a lot of the stuff that it's trying to do with a very small team.
Okay. I think if I'm going to buy into a survival crafter, it's probably Dune this year.
Yeah, Dune Awakening is sick.
So you have told me.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool game.
Well, all right. Do they have any timeline for those people who may be interested?
I don't think so. I think they're a small company that's basically just going to take their time and see how long it takes them to finish it. Lots of great games have done that. That's how Minecraft did it. So more power to them, and maybe we'll review it in the future. For now, I say probably hold off. Also, shout out to our friend in the chat, Robert Frawley II, who played this game with me over the winter break.
Cool.
He also had problems with it. I think he probably was even harsher on it than me. But we had fun. He helped me cure a floating island dragon. Pretty cool.
Text problems are pretty normal for indie games in the early access space.
It's true.
That's why I don't jump onto them unless there's something that's really motivating me. But yeah, sounds like
Fair
a
enough.
6 in your description.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds satisfactory.
No,
Whoa.
Satisfactory is like a 9.
Satisfactory is very good. Yeah,
I know. I was joking that you played that with Rob, and therefore
it's true.
Never
it's true. He's still playing that game, by the way. I see him on Discord all the time, and he's playing Satisfactory, and I'm like, this guy loves factories.
Fair enough. So I want to touch on the first Berserker Kazan, which is a demo that went live. They had like an alpha a couple months ago that I actually didn't play. I got access and didn't play it. So I checked out the demo. It's live now, PC, PlayStation, Xbox. The full game releases on March 27th. And the demo is the first 2 chapters. So when you first go into it, definitely feels kind of hack and slashy Souls-like, which it is. As you go through the first 2 chapters, it introduces a few new wrinkles. You get some interesting kind of attack combos and things you can do with attacks. It introduces a loot system, so more of a Neo type approach with like a randomized loot system with rarities, gear sets, and then it also introduces a skill tree as well. And individual weapon types have individual skill trees. And so, there's a few more wrinkles than just your normal Souls-like, because Souls-like has become such a broad thing nowadays. So it is also kind of a cell shaded look. It's got this anime kind of art direction on it, but it's very pretty. It's very smooth in motion. And I gotta say, I didn't really expect much out of this. I thought it looked cool when they showed it in a video last year, whenever that was. But it has really surprised me. I am at the end of the 2nd chapter now. I just this morning before the show, so I've heard the boss is fun. We'll get to him later today. But I've really enjoyed it. And I went from kind of this not really being on my radar to now I'm looking at playing this day 1. So it is a full-scale release. It's not like a small indie game. It's made by Nexon or published by Nexon, what have you. But I've been really impressed with it. So if you
the indie studio Nexon? Makers of Dave the Diver?
That's the one. If you like hack and slashes / Souls likes, I would check it out and at least get through the 2nd chapter of the demo, because it kind of not spoon feeds you. It feeds you things one by one as you go through. So it teaches you new weapons, teaches you new skills, etc. So when you first start, it feels pretty bare bones, but it broadens out pretty quickly. So really like it. It's really cool so far.
When I hear the word Berserker, I think super gory anime. What is the artistic sensibility of this game?
It's in that space. Basically, it starts out where this guy who obviously has committed some sort of crimes. He's all been cut up and chained up and everything. And some sort of demon, I don't know the entire story, so anyone feel free to correct me here, but some sort of demon basically looking for a human body to inhabit, comes down, kills all the other guards, inhabits this, that becomes you, and you have this demon possessing you at that point. When you kill enemies and stuff, you turn them into bloody piles of mess. And there's kind of visceral attacks and gore, and so it's in that space. So and it's much more attack focused. You can play Dark Souls and stuff very like sword and board. You can kind of play defensively. This is much more parry and attack, aggressive in that sense.
Sekiro is more defensive. You're kind of just waiting. You say it's like a reverse Sekiro?
I'd say it's more like Wukong, honestly, for a modern comparison in that space.
Wukong has a lot of hitting stuff with the stick.
Sekiro's not modern. Interesting.
Well, you know what I mean. But yeah, it's
I love that. I love that retro game. It's so old school. Sekiro.
But yeah, I really liked it. It surprised me. And I've talked to several other people playing it who kind of felt the same as me. It was like, it was kind of on the radar. Now, having played it or beat the 2 chapters in the demo, it's like, wow, this is really up there now. Like, I'll be checking this out on release. So check it out.
All right. So not adding that one to my list either.
I wouldn't. It's not
Sorry.
a hope game.
I think that's
No.
more a game for your daughters, but yeah.
Not a
Sure.
hope game. Like Aloft is not a game for me. This is not a game for you. But yeah.
Y'all just need to open your mind because I'll be playing Aloft and the First Berserker, and I'm gonna love every minute of it.
Enjoy.
True, but
time is fleeting.
No, I disagree. There's way too much time.
I'm trying to get rid of as much time.
Life
as
is
possible.
too long. How many days are there? It's wild.
Oh, what you been playing?
I've been playing a number of fun things actually this week.
Why?
I really enjoyed the new Dynasty Warriors Origins.
Oh yeah, it's actually surprisingly good.
Which takes a few beats from Souls Land, takes a few beats from something like Mortal Kombat Story Mode, and has you running around a map and gives kind of context to these various things that are happening in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms type of era. And one of the things that I've never liked about Dynasty Warriors is that there are all these Chinese names. It's a novel's worth of Chinese names. It's very hard to follow when you jump in. And Dynasty Warriors has always been kind of arranged around pick your Avenger and go do these various things that you don't really understand in China. And this game takes a different tact. It gives you one character, a fictional character. I believe they're all fictional characters, but in this particular case, one that's not from the novel, and has you run a through line through the plot. And it's not a great plot. Like, don't go to Dynasty Warriors for the plot. That hasn't really changed with Origins, but it does have a story and gives you context for what's happening in a way that I think is better than prior games. And I've really enjoyed it. It's a well-performing, highly detailed, what do they call them? Muso games. Not really my favorite usually, but I have liked some in the past, like the Zelda versions of them. And this takes some beats from there. Yeah.
Is that seriously? I haven't heard that before. I didn't know what that meant.
Yes, it's you have a big stick and you make people fly in the air when you hit them. It's all like Avengers. And Dynasty Warriors has always been kind of built around that premise. But
yeah,
it's a good game. I like Origins a lot. That's one of the ones I've been playing this week. I've also been playing a mystery game on the PC. It's called The Root Trees Are Dead.
Yeah,
which I liken to those Postman books from the 80s when we were kids, right?
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember these. They were big, thick books where you would change the page and there would be a number of packages to open and envelopes to open, and they'd have different Valentine's Day cards or things. And I always really liked those because you never knew what you were going to get. It was always a surprise, and they were little detailed toys. There was a high toy factor to these books. And this particular game has you researching a family tree on a PC in the late 90s. And when you find a little bit of information, you will get like a download of a piece of music that might give you a clue to something else, or a book that was written by one of the family members that might tell you little bits and details of other things that are happening in the family. And the combination is really cool. You wind up finding little bits and pieces out, really feeling like a detective, feeling like you're solving things, much like the Rise of the Golden Idol, which I talked about a couple of episodes ago. And it's got a nice little envelope around it. It's got a nice little mystery that you're trying to solve. There's contracts that are worrying about. There's trusts and estates issues. There's business organizational issues. There's fame. There's fortune. There's celebrity gossip.
Me where I live, bro.
I know
Trust
it, right?
Estates issues. I'm like, oh, ooh.
You're trying to figure out how this family trust works. It's great.
That's.
I saw this.
My hobby. I love doing that.
I saw Jason Schreier talking about this being like, easily his favorite game so far. It's very early in the year, of course, but he was giving it high praise. And
really an investigative reporter who likes.
There's nothing I agree with more than a Jason Schreier take. So
I know that's usually where you land.
Too bad you're not allowed to see his posts.
Well, I am now. Thanks, Elon.
I looked up Postman books and I found an individual bookstore, so I have failed in this in trying to look up what.
You are allowed to see posts because blocking isn't a real thing anymore, huh?
Yeah, what are they called? Like My Little Postman? I don't remember here, chat. What are the little books where you had a mailman go through the various pages and then you could open up the pieces of mail and they had little toys in them? It was fantastic.
I'm trying to see if I remember them, but I couldn't find them because I was looking up the wrong thing.
It's all right, Travis. We read books when we were kids.
Or maybe you got gifts from the mailman because he's your real father. He's just trying to tell you.
Don't you talk about Papa Hogue that way?
We don't know. We don't
The
know.
Jolly Postman says sardanisms. That sounds right.
She would know. She would know. So okay,
Also,
I'm gonna look this up.
How
while we're
are
talking.
you gonna take me down for not reading books in the 80s before I was alive?
Books
Let alone literate.
Books don't just go away. You could have read them when you were a kid, whenever you were a kid, man.
You can get it on Amazon right now, sir.
You can get it on Amazon right now.
You think when I was a kid, I went back to go read a toy book where you open up envelopes?
Travis, I don't know what you read, man.
The Silmarillion.
Yeah, go nuts, buddy.
Because I was cool. All right.
That's right. I started with Finnegan's Wake. No Jolly Postman for me.
Yeah.
Well, it's Root Trees. What's the full name of that game again?
The Root Trees Are Dead.
Are dead, yeah. So I know some of our audience.
It's on my list. We need to find time for it.
Yeah, I know some of our audience was asking about that previously. So definitely check it out. It seems to be getting very high praise from everyone who is kind of engaged with it. So.
It's really well done. It does have that kind of Golden Idol type mystery solving. You get certain advances in the plot when you lock in people. You have to find a picture of them somewhere on the fake internet. You have to figure out what their name is in connection with the rest of the family, and then you need to figure out what their job was. And when you can do that for 3 different people on this enormous family tree, it locks in and gives you some kind of advancement in plot. And it's a really good system. It feels like you're investigating a real thing. The only thing I don't like about this game is that I'm a sucker for fake internets. I love them in a lot of different games. There's a lot of games that do it. This is one of my favorite aspects of the Front Mission series was when they had their fake internets that you would go search things through. The Root Trees game skips a step that I don't love, and that is that they don't actually recreate these websites. You don't see the dancing skull gifs behind a completely ridiculous musical montage and multicolored lettering. It instead gives you a narrative of you seeing that. So when you do a search and you figure out where you're supposed to be looking, it'll say you arrive at a crazy looking page with multicolored lettering, and it says these things, and it kind of summarizes what you would be doing. So it kind of skips one step of your investigation where you'd have to suss out what's important on these web pages. But with the evidence that you're collecting, with the music that you download and the various posters that you find and things like that, it still works. It just isn't 100% as cool as I would like it.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, cool. Very cool. Doesn't sound like my type of game, but like I said, the people I've seen who have engaged with it and like that type of game seem to love it. So that's awesome. Love it.
I love searching a fake internet. It's one of my favorite things. And the last thing I played, which Travis recommended to me about a year ago, is the demo for a game called The Altars. Which I wasn't expecting really anything from because I don't trust Travis at all. Anything he says on any topic. But I downloaded this demo and I was checking out this game, and it's really a lot higher production quality than I had expected. I thought it would be this kind of junky indie thing. And it's really not. It's more of a highly polished experience. You find yourself for reasons unknown on an alien world, and you have to go and build up your base with materials that you can find around it. But because you don't have enough abilities on your own, you find out that the corporation has taken your kind of life pathway, your memories, and you can change them in a cloning lab to create clones of you that have different abilities than yourself. And when you create them, it's not just a game mechanic. They have their own personalities. You're working through kind of the existential crisis that this creates on a storytelling basis. And then you're dealing with them like Sims in your base. So it's kind of a combination of Death Stranding. It really feels like that with building pylons and things around the area around your base. Something like XCOM with the base itself, and then Sims while trying to keep everybody happy doing the things that you need them to do to ultimately escape this planet before it evaporates. And you combine all that with some cool, hard sci-fi notions and dialogue, and it seems like it's going to be a winner. Unfortunately, it has roughly the release date of the Switch 2, 2025. Who knows? But it should be good when it comes out.
Yes.
So it sounds like it's serious multiplicity is.
I think of it as Moon, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a very cool premise. yeah, both the like I don't know how much was in the demo, but when I saw it a year ago, there was quite a bit of like how many copies of yourself did they give you in the demo?
The demo lets you get through making one, and then it has a
Okay.
trailer at the end that shows more.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so the section that I saw was maybe like 4 or 5 copies deep, and you were dealing with like the repercussions of them not getting along and like some of them being extremely volatile human beings and, you know, trying to figure out how to balance them. And then I really like the mechanic of you're basically trying to work together to move your ship forward on a planet because when the sun is the star is so close to the planet that when it raises when it crests, it'll burn you up, and so you're like trying to
days
move
to sunrise is just a cool thing to put on your menu.
Yeah. So you have to worry about the sun coming up and killing you, and so it's got this like perpetual nighttime, like trying to move obstacles out of the way and move your vehicle along, and you're also upgrading your ship, which is really cool. So it's just got a lot of cool stuff going for it. Super unique, and I'm really rooting for this game and the team. I did not draft it, Ains, because it's just too unknown, but it is one of the games I'm most excited for this year.
Yeah, cool. Very
highly polished and unique, and I'm looking forward to it. Yeah,
awesome.
And so the altars, the root trees, Dynasty Warriors, really fun week of games.
Yeah, it's good. Different games too. Very cool.
Yep.
The only other thing I played this week was I actually finished Resident Evil 4 Remake. I know I mentioned that last week. I've gone back to that. It's the first time I've ever finished Resident Evil 4. First time.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It was one of my big gaming gaps, and so I played about 2/3 of the remake when it launched last year. Got pulled aside. Just went back to it. Just finished it this week. Love that game. Love that game.
Very
I think
cool.
it was a shout out to Mo, who's been on the show, good friend, and he said it is just a video game, and it is. It's just
it's a video
goofy, fun, over the top video game that's fun to play, and playing it. It's even better now on the PS5 Pro. Like it's just gorgeous and super well optimized, and it's just fun. Yeah, I had a great time.
Resident Evil 4 might be the game I've beaten the most times. That might not be strictly true because there's like lots of games where you have to play them multiple times or whatever, but might be Minecraft or whatever if you can't count that as beating it.
Like normal single player games.
But like that, because that game's had so many releases. Like I played it when it was on the GameCube. I think it was a GameCube exclusive. And then I played it when it came out on the PlayStation and Xbox. And then I played it when they re-released it on the 360. And like it's come out so many times. And then I had to beat it I just happened to beat it when it came out in the remake, and then I had to review it on VR, so I had to beat it again.
Oh, right,
twice that year, and so it's like I've just beaten that game so many damn times. And then it lets you do cool stuff on, like consecutive playthroughs. Like you get to keep your.
I got professional mode now and outfits, and you can unlock new weapons, and it's cool.
So some of those times I've beaten it multiple times because the game sort of encourages you to do New Game Plus. I play that game a lot.
Yeah,
maybe.
I still mildly resent Resident Evil 4 for taking the series in a direction I didn't like.
Yeah, we know. Well,
I know.
All right.
Oh, yes. I mean.
I thought this was a commentary podcast. I will refrain from adding anything.
We've heard the comments so many times. It's like,
I mean, it's very clear, right? Like finishing it, it's very clear the influence that Resident Evil 4 had on Village's design, right? Going from Biohazard 7 to 8, and you can just see that the difference. And I like them both, right? I like the more darker survival horror Resident Evils and the actiony kind of goofy, even more goofy than normal Resident Evil, because all of Resident Evil's goofy. But I loved it. So,
speaking of games that changed the direction of the series in a very stark way, I would like to talk about a game I'm currently reviewing called Hyperight.
Talk about it?
I can't talk about it.
Okay.
So the reason I can talk about this game is because it's already out. Reviewers did not get early access copies because it is an early access game, and they, for whatever reason, didn't offer earlier access or whatever. So I can talk about it because it's out. But my review is not finished, but I have a review in progress that you can read right now on IGN.com. And if you have played a game called Hyperlight Drifter, which came out quite a while ago at this point, I think at least 10 years ago, it is a pixelated top-down indie game with Souls-like elements. It's got a certainly a difficult game where you're resting by bonfires and doing that sort of stuff. It's a very cool, beautiful world. One of my favorite indie games of all time. I really like that game. It hit me at a very good time in my life. Anyway, they have a sequel. Well, I wouldn't really call it a sequel, but there's another game that has got the Hyperlight branding, and it is called Hyperlight Breaker. This game, in even farther deviation than Resident Evil 4 ever could hope to achieve, is a third-person multiplayer roguelike game, hack and slash with guns. Completely different style, completely different genre, multiplayer game, very different. And as you guys know, I'm not reverent toward games. I love Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, a game that took a platformer and said, no, now we're doing racing. And I said, I love it. However, Hyperlight Breaker so far is not a good game. It is pretty aggressively not a good game. I've played, I've beaten my first playthrough on this, or actually I've beaten 2 playthroughs now, which it is a roguelike, so you're expected to play through it multiple times. But basically, it is an extremely challenging combat system that doesn't feel good. So it's got a very bad parry system that I have beaten the game twice and still don't really understand how you're expected to interact with it. You get swarmed by enemies that attack you in a very unpredictable, sloppy feeling manner. You basically have to play the game with 3 players because playing it solo, I mean, it is like overwhelmingly difficult in like an unfair way where like you're fighting a boss and you're just like, dude, infinitely spawning enemies there's like, 12 of them on screen at any time, plus the boss I'm dealing with. There's no way to combat it because as soon as you kill the ads, they just come back right away. Like stuff like that where you're like, okay, this is some bullshit. And worst of all, you are the weakest at the beginning of the game. You have no healing items. Of course. You can never heal, and your equipment is like terrible. And basically the game makes you fail like 10, 15 times in a row on runs before it's even like, before you even feel like you have a chance of progressing in any way. Like you just like die at least 5 times before you get like your first healing item. And all the other times you're basically just getting the shit slapped out of you.
So it's not Hades, what you're saying.
Yeah, not at all Hades. It's a game that does not feel good. The combat system feels really off. And it also has roguelike areas. You ever play a roguelike game and you're like, oh, I'm worried that like the maps won't feel unique or like handcrafted like that. You're like, oh, I wonder if they'll feel handcrafted. This game feels excruciatingly not handcrafted, where like each of the islands is like its own, like the map is like a connection of like nodes that very clearly aren't the same biome, and you can tell exactly where the fault ends on one, where the other one is. Like the snapped pieces together, you're like, oh, I can see the roguelike in this like immediately, and they're snapped on in such a haphazard way that you have to climb up really slopey mountains that don't feel like you're supposed to climb them in order to get through areas of the game. There's like not obvious pathing because the roguelike snapping together is so sloppy. And so it doesn't feel good to move around, doesn't feel good to fight, feels pretty unfair and brutal, especially at the beginning in terms of challenge. And also it currently only has 2 bosses, one which you fight twice, and then the other one you fight once, and then the game ends because it doesn't have an ending yet, because it is an early access game. Again, this is an early access game. I don't mean to be too hard on it because I'm sure that they will fix a lot of this up. It's already gotten patches in the time I've started playing it and become a lot more stable, because it was crashing a ton when I first started playing it. But it is not a good game, and I do not recommend you play it anytime soon.
Wow.
That's crazy, because did you ever play Risk of Rain 2, Travis?
I did. I also
sounds like that transition. It sounds like it to a roguelike third-person shooter.
Yeah, this game feels a lot more like Solar Ash, if you guys ever played that game. And
I think I did.
I can't remember if it's made by the same team or whatever, but it's basically in that same vein and genre. It's like very much a that type of multiplayer roguelike. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it doesn't even when you're evaluating it separately from Hyperlight Drifter, which I sort of like already knew, like going into it, I was told it was this type of game, and I was like, okay, that's a departure, but like, let's give it a shot. I'm not the type to care if a game genre or if a series changes genres and just like mixes things up. I tend to think that that's cool and interesting, but unfortunately, this experiment so far is not bearing fruit, and that's a bit of a bummer.
I wonder if they just, they wanted to change course and underestimated the difficulty in doing so.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It sounds like it's way too early to say, right? I mean, like this team is I liked Solar Ash, which wasn't a roguelike, but
yeah, that's true.
I think that early access can have this happen with these teams. Sometimes they come out and they're like a Hades, and it's mostly done in concept, and they're adding content, and everybody likes it from the get-go. And sometimes it looks like trash until it doesn't.
Yep.
So this one might be too early, and this team has made games that people have liked before.
Yes. It is very possible that it's too early, but again, they're asking for your money now. And
I get why you're speaking on it.
Yeah. I will say this. I think the team knows that it's too early, and maybe shouldn't have done a review cycle on this one, but I think in their email they were like, please don't score our game, and I was like, well, that's not how that works. So we had to tell them that we will be scoring their game and that's how it works. But definitely too early for me to recommend it. That's all I can say. And I will be following this one with great interest, but so far it is a pretty bad
game. Which is crazy hearing it's that bad at this moment, because they had PlayStations, not PlayStation, but PlayStations available at Summer Game Fest last year for that game. So I'm like, well, what the hell shape was it in 7 months ago? Damn.
I cannot tell you. It was not there, but yeah, I remember when they were talking about picking it on the draft, I was really hoping that they would, because I was like, oh man, that's not going to go well for them. I could tell you right now. The Steam reviews are pretty harsh. I would say harsher even than I would say. A lot of people are pretty pissed off, but
that's just Steam reviewers.
That's reviewers. Yeah. Can't trust Steam reviews.
I'm not sure about trust. I wouldn't trust anybody I don't know, especially anonymously on the internet. But Steam reviews do tend to be hyperbolic in either direction. Greatest thing since sliced bread, killed my mother. Like, those are your choices on Steam.
Those are both positives in my book.
Jesus. All right. Let's get the super chat from our good friend Sid.
Siddharth Shashokar offers 400 rupees and writes, I know I'm late, but I tallied up my 2024. Great year, despite me missing many big releases. Top 5 based on enjoyment. 1, Balatro. 2, Airtree. 3, Animal Well. 4, Path of Exile 2 Beta. 5, Deadlock. Great work as always. Cheers.
Nice. Good list. I still need to play Animal Well.
PoE 2 Beta. Does he mean the literal beta, or does he mean the early access game?
I don't know.
This is the beta right now, is what I would assume.
There was an actual beta though, so I think he
means early access. But
most of us don't have your fancy reviewer credentials, Travis.
No, I mean there was an actual beta. The people played in it, like normal people played in the beta, and it was before the early access period. Not just me.
you normies.
I knew what he meant.
Sid, thank you, man. Hope you're doing well. All right. Let's get over to our kind of bigger topics today, which we'll start with the Switch 2. That's our cover topic. So I got a lot of thoughts here, guys. We'll kind of break this down section by section. So let's start with the actual reveal itself. So we get, we've talked for a few weeks now because the leaks have been crazy, right? Around the form factor and what to expect and the Joy-Cons and basically everything with the Switch. So they do this reveal, and I actually woke up to it. I guess they did it early AM, or I was in a meeting or something. So I came back to it, and I was like, oh, cool. We're going to get the date. The date will be soon. Hopefully they show at least something pretty cool, right? And what I got was what I would call nothing more than a tease of next to nothing, with a reveal for the reveal that's nearly 3 months away.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell are we doing? Like, I'm excited for the Switch too, but this felt weird.
I think it makes sense, and I do think it's weird, but I think it makes sense. My impression.
I think it's weird, but I think it makes sense. Elaborate.
Elaborate. I will. I think that this was a reveal done under duress because you can only have so many leaks before you're just like, all right, we have to give them something. I don't think this is how they wanted to reveal the Switch 2. I don't think that this is how they planned it. I think somebody made this as like, we have to say something because it's getting kind of out of control. And I think that's why it comes off as a big nothing burger, because it was just them saying, yeah, okay, it's happening. Should they have maybe revealed sooner? Probably. But I think
you could have released that video whenever you liked. I'm going to disagree
my
with
point
you,
is,
Travis.
I
don't think it is duress.
My point is, I think they had a plan, and I don't think this ever was the plan. And I think whatever plan they originally had, they couldn't do and had to do this thing instead.
I agree with that. I think that their date slid. I think something happened on the back end, whether it's software development, because we know Nintendo wants to hit that same cadence as the original Switch. We know they've been holding off on internal announcements for forever. So they want that first reveal of video games to be just crazy. They want to show you an open world Mario Kart. They want to show you a new Metroid Prime. They want to show you a Zelda, whatever it might be. We don't know. But they want to hit you with all these mic drop announcements. And if anything slid in development, you'd have a sliding of the hardware if you want to line those up. I don't know if that's the reason, but I do think that something slid behind the scenes, because I don't think that even when they were talking to investors, it looked like they were going to slide into the next fiscal year on this release until maybe a couple of months ago. And so this is really a stopgap. I don't think it's duress from leaks. I don't think they cared enough about that. I do think it is at least some pressure from outside vendors, right? All of these third parties that are making games that they're going to put on the Switch 2, whether it's big ones or indies, have been locked out of saying that for this entire period of time. And I am sure that a number of them want to get their marketing in place, want to sell these things. Nintendo should want them to sell them because that's going to help sell their system. And I think this was the Switch 2 is real. You can say the word Switch 2 in your marketing, even if we're not going to fully unleash the floodgates until April. Now, do I think this is a good plan? I do not. I think that video is a disappointment. I think it's the worst announcement of new hardware that I'm otherwise excited about in perhaps my entire life. I think it needed at least a date. It probably needed a date and a price. It needed an actual launch title for this to be worth our time at all. And flying the camera past blurry shots of people playing Mario Kart is the worst thing to get anybody excited, in my opinion. Except, of course, that I know IGN and GameSpot and everyone else have run all the what's in Mario Kart 9 articles to your heart's content until you're sick of the entire concept. So they're getting their mileage out of it, but I think it's a dumb reveal. I think it's badly handled, and I think Nintendo should be ashamed. But I am excited about their product, so it doesn't really matter.
Interesting. Well, I can tell you based on
you ranted for like 2 minutes straight, and then I am interested in the product. So
I
always
tell you
was.
based on Google Trends, people are very interested in both the Switch and games.
It's going to sell like gangbusters, but not because of this jackassery.
I think there's a lot of people who are very relieved that they finally are talking about it and that it's coming at some point in the future, because I view this as like a Silk Song where they were like, is this thing ever actually going to come out? And
Silk Song's coming out in 2025. Damn it.
I mean, we bet on it, so it better. But
I could not care less about Silk Song.
Okay, that's fine. But my point is, a lot of people do. You're in the minority on that one in this industry. And I bet
you if we take a survey of people and ask them what they feel about Silk Song, the vast majority are going to say, what?
Gamers?
Gamers. Yes. Yeah. Everybody that's ever played a game.
Oh, boy. Here we go. But yeah.
The majority. Come on, let's go. Who's even heard of Hollow Knight in the majority?
Yeah, I agree. And I'm talking, let's say the majority of our commenters. How about that?
I see. All right. No, we can keep narrowing the focus. We can keep moving the goalposts, whatever you like, Travis.
I mean, you set the original goalposts without my consent, so the fact that you're moving them.
Do I have to get verses out already?
Yeah, he's being pedantic again. Can you tell him
I'm holding people to what they say. If that's pedantry, I don't know what to tell you, Travis.
Yeah, I think you knew what I meant, and you're being literal.
I spend my entire time on this show knowing what you meant to say.
Okay. Yeah.
Moving on.
All right. $500 Switch. We'll see how right you are.
It's gonna be $499. Yep.
Sure. Enjoy. So yeah, I think it was under duress. I think, maybe not the leaks alone, but I think Hogue, you even mentioned like there's pressure from outside vendors. I would say that also is kind of a duress.
But that's their own mistake, right? Like all of this is their own mistake. I don't think this was ever their timeline. But and whatever happened behind the scenes has pushed their timeline a little bit forward past where any of this works for their outside parties, whether that's their manufacturers who clearly didn't have the same restrictions after CES that they had beforehand, whether it's their third-party software vendors, whoever it is, this has kind of fallen outside of their control and what they wanted to do.
I agree.
See?
I think they did this and it was not their plan or their desire, and they're kind of like, all right, let's just get it out there. And I think that's why it's underwhelming. I think there's a much bigger, like the reveal that they announced. I think that's going to be the actual coming out party, and I'm sure it'll be great. So
I'm just
excited.
No, I'm with you guys on everything you said. And I think the most annoying thing about this to me was the fact that you come out and get people excited. Obviously, when you see Switch 2 from official Nintendo, and everyone obviously has been waiting for this, or when I say everyone, the people in the gaming community, at least your hardcore people, because they know it's coming, you get excited. And then it's like full reveal April 2nd. Like if that full reveal is first week of February or second week of February, I think we're having a different conversation. I'm not too miffed, but the fact that you're waiting 3 months to even give a date, give a price, show some games, what have you. I think that gap is what really kind of threw me astray. I was like, that's crazy that you came out today to say it's real, which we already knew it's real. Let's remember, President of Nintendo already talked about the Switch 2 and already said it has backwards compatibility.
They've been disclaiming every direct with, we will not talk about the Switch successor. We know that the Switch 2 was out.
It's real. So to just have the video and then say, we'll show you 3 months from now is, I don't know, that felt
for
weird.
A bigger Switch, right? It's not like they have anything exciting to show technologically. I know you want to talk about optical lasers and whatnot.
Yeah, we can get there. Yeah.
But this is a bigger Switch. The entire kind of rendered teaser video is just things being bigger. And for a portable system, I don't know that that's always what you want anyway. So it's going to be based on hand feel, and we're going to have to see how we feel about the Switch.
It's not just bigger, Hogue.
But I know a lot of people think that like the Steam Deck is too big and clunky. And I don't know how I'm going to feel about the Switch once it actually comes out. But yes, it does look just bigger.
You must have missed IGN's in-depth analysis.
I'm sure I did.
Because then you would know that it is not just bigger, Hogue. It also has more buttons. There's some sort of secret sensor inside the controllers that doesn't appear on the current Switch. There is.
You got that from the video? See,
it's in the video.
Oh, where is it in the video? I didn't see
it's on the controller when it shows the controller being transformed into the new controller. All right.
Is IGN just going out and YouTubing with giant red arrows now?
IGN has content? We have experts on the case who are going looking deep into these trailers, watching them multiple times. All right. These are professionals.
That's what I want to ask you guys about. So the only thing that we've seen, and if you look at go to their main site, the Switch 2 main site for Nintendo, it shows the additional triggers on the inside of the Joy-Cons, and it shows that there's an optical laser inside the Joy-Con when you have it off, right? So like mouse functionality. But what I want to ask you guys is very clearly the design, everything about this is just 2025 Switch 1, right? So even if you look at like, here's the original stock photo, right, for the Switch. Here's the stock photo for the Switch 2. Like, the fact that it has a 2 on it is pretty much the main thing telling you that it's something different.
I hate that.
Hold on, let me finish my thought. Too much over talk. The console itself is the same design, same look, same layout, same buttons except for the inner triggers, right? It's very, very similar. And we expected that, right? A lot of us already said, like, the Switch 2 is just going to be a more powerful Switch with a 1080p screen, and that's kind of what everyone wanted, or not, maybe not everyone, but a portion wants. Are you guys, now that we've seen it, now that we know it's that, at least so far, are you happy with that?
Yes, but this was never going to be what I cared about. Yes, I want the hardware to essentially be better and to be more capable in 2025. But I only ever cared about what that meant for my games, both on backward compatibility and what you're going to make new for me. And so this announcement, this teaser, always should have been one of those cheesy Nintendo people playing on the roof, people playing in their fancy California apartments, actual games. And that's not what
I think we all agree there. I think we all agree on that. I'm moved on to form factor.
Coming in 3 months.
We all agree the reveal sucked. I mean, there we go.
Okay. Well, if we're in agreement on that, this was always what I thought the Switch was going to be. Backwards compatibility already kind of limits the changes you can make to like what you're actually going to be interacting with. And one of the things that people asked me a lot about is the end of this reveal had a disclaimer that said most of the Switch games will work backwards compatibility. And people said, well, isn't that just going to be like the a la carte Xbox version? And should I really get excited about this? We don't know unless we're using arrows and analyzing every frame of the video like IGN apparently is. But we don't know what it means, but it is the kind of language that you would put there if you're just trying to isolate that, like the change in the size of the Joy-Cons, as a for instance, or the lack of an IR sensor would change the ability to play things like 1-2 switch, would change the ability to play things like Labo. And so looking at it from a lawyer's perspective, you'd have that disclaimer. You'd have it say most, not all, will be functional on the Switch 2 because there are hardware reasons why some won't work. And so I am not scared about what they're actually offering. Just the fact that it can take cartridges suggests that it's not an emulator in there, or it's not something that is trying to brute force a fake version of what the Switch used to do. It's essentially a Switch inside the Switch 2. So I would expect most things to work except for the ones that physically can't.
Yeah. Agreed. I agree.
Yeah. I think people are reading a little too much into that disclaimer. I do think it's going to be like the same thing as the Xbox Series X not being fully backwards compatible because it didn't support Switch game or Kinect games.
Yeah. That kind
of
99.5%. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same level of not backwards compatibility that you need an asterisk for. But I fully expect the vast majority of its library to be backwards compatible and up-res things and all that stuff. And I'm sure
I don't see any of those promises. I do see people talking about those kinds of things. I would like it to fix up frame rates. I would like it to use AI to up-res. That's the kind of thing I'm waiting to see announced, and not a line of text at the end of their announcement video. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope that is in fact the case. I think a lot of Switch games could use some help from some technology that is past 2013.
I don't think they will be using up-res things, but I do think it will benefit from performance improvements regardless. And I'm sure a lot of the games are going to be optimized.
They should. I mean, the from what we know, right, and the people who've kind of studied the SOC, right, is that the SOC is the it should be NVIDIA, right? It should. That's why you're getting the native backwards compatibility, but you should be able to have DLSS, right, in some form, whatever DLSS that is, to help with the things, Hogue. So we'll see. I mean, we don't know, right? No one knows definitively. That's what we're waiting to see. But I guess we knew this was going to be the case, right? But the more I thought about it, it's like, okay, now we know this isn't even launching until summer, right? If we're not even seeing what it is till April. Yeah. So now you're all the way out to summer of 2025. The PS5 Pro is already out. The rumor, at least at this moment, is we're going to see new Xbox hardware in late 2026. So you're at another stage again, and I'm not directly comparing. I'm just saying you're at another stage again where the Switch is coming out. It closes some of that gap from the old Switch hardware, which at this point is ancient, right? But you're coming out in mid to late 2025. You're only a year away from this being multiple generations again behind compared to literally everything else. And it just feels like we're going to see the same thing within 2 to 3 years time. The Switch is going to feel like a toy compared to everything else.
Who cares?
I'm just saying that it feels like, I guess my mindset was we're getting a Switch 2. The more advanced hardware is what many of us are waiting for. But it's gonna have the same arc, I guess is what I'm saying, as what the Switch 1 had, where very quickly it's going to feel outdated again.
Sure, Nintendo is going to be very happy with that arc.
Well, I
will say this as if that's not the point I'm making. You know this.
It's a very good arc for them. I don't see why it's bad for them or players. So what does it matter?
Okay. I do think that Nintendo should have done this a year ago. I think they are a year late already, and they're sliding forward even more. Looking at my experiences with the Switch, where they really lost technological ability to even make the games they wanted to make internally, I think they're about a year late on this, and they tried to squeeze out that OLED model, probably where the Switch 2 should have lived. And I think that this is going to be a problem for the hardcore photorealistic gamers among us. I don't think it's going to be a problem for folks that don't care quite as much about those things. I think the Switch 2 is likely to be essentially functional for what a modern game design requires. And that's really all Nintendo needs to do. It needs to be kind of bare bones. This thing can operate on this system. I expect it to have output something like the PlayStation 4. And if they can hit that, I honestly think, I know our next topic is Sony, but I honestly think Sony is looking at a real trouble state. And so Nintendo, despite being about a year late to the party for what I think they should have done, is in a position to reap the benefits of the two titans in gaming essentially floundering over what their direction should even be.
Sorry, I went to type a comment and hit mute right when you ended your sentence. But yeah, I think that's fair. And people are saying the same thing, like it's on PS4. Now, again, I'm saying, yes, that's today, right?
No, it's always going to be 4. It's just how much distance you have from 4.
Well, that's the point I'm saying. Yes, it's coming up to that standard today in 2025. My point
we're
was,
at 5 right now. Like, I'm giving it that it can be a generation behind already.
I know. But I'm saying, what our chat is saying is that most of the stuff still runs on 4. A lot of players in the world are on 4. I get that. No one's debating that. My point wasn't today. My point was a couple years from now, you've got that same arc, right? So no, the games will not be releasing on PS4 in 2026 and 2027. So no, it's not going to be level set with what's modern hardware 2 years from now. So you're going to run into the same.
Going to be.
I know. I'm just saying you're going to run into the same issue. I think unless there's some sort of, again, chipset solution they're coming up here with DLSS or something else to help them in that regard.
Nope. So. I don't think they care. I don't think they should care. I think they're doing their own thing. I don't think they've ever been the power play people. I don't think they mind being behind the curve a little bit. I think some of their third party, like our Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty is going to run in it. I think some of those ambitions are going to fall through, especially in the later half of the life cycle. I'd be really shocked if we saw like major third party support for games that weren't designed specifically with the Switch 2 in mind. But I don't really think Nintendo has reason to care about being behind because they're doing their own thing and it's really working for them. And lots of people like their games, myself included. And this is basically just a hardware upgrade so that they can continue to make the games that they want to make without, feeling like they're limited in their vision. And good for them.
I mean, Link's Awakening,
they come up with some good games.
Princess Peach, they were having all sorts of trouble.
They started to get to the edge. Yeah, you can see it. Like, the Breath of the Wild was kind of a technological marvel in how it performs on that hardware, and I think Tears of the Kingdom was like less so. And so I think it's happening.
Well, Breath of the Wild was greatly advantaged by being a Wii U game.
Yes,
but also does it run better on the Wii U? I'm pretty sure that's a thing.
I do not. I've not heard of that, but I can tell you on the Switch, it runs amazingly well for like what that game contains. It is an incredibly optimized game. It's like a reverse Pokemon.
It got
Arceus.
fixed up. It had some stuff right at launch, but yeah, it's good for the Switch. I mean, the Switch is amazing for what it is, and Nintendo can do that again with whatever the Switch 2 power level is. Luigi's Mansion 3 is one of my favorite graphical showpieces of this time period, whether you want to call that the generation or not, because Nintendo is kind of off generation. And so I have no doubt Nintendo is going to be able to make this thing sing. The question was always, can it put out a piece of hardware that third parties can lower their specs down enough to sell on? And can they make it an attractive enough market for the third parties to bother to do that? And the Switch kind of proved that Nintendo had this market, hopefully for them going into the Switch 2. And so I expect the Ubisofts of the world, the Activisions of the world, maybe even Sony and Microsoft proper to support this system in the long run. But yes, Ains is right that it'll separate more as we go. I just don't think the separations matter. I don't think the leap from 4 to 5 mattered on the PlayStation level. I think the leap from 5 to 6 will matter even less.
My agreed. And my point all along was it doesn't matter. That's not the point I was making. It's that kind of like you said about PlayStation. They what we're going to segue to soon, right? They fumbled massively with the PS5 generation so far, and it's like they came off the tremendous success of PS4 from a game perspective. I'm talking about, and I think like Switch had this opportunity. And again, I'm not saying it mattered. I'm not saying the Switch is going to fail. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying, for me personally, they had an opportunity to catapult forward in technology to where they retain all of the stuff that people love about the Switch, the portability, the Nintendo IP catalog, all the things it does well, while moving it into a place where we could get all of our mainline third-party games on that hardware. Because that's what the Switch lacked anything. It lacked good ports of a lot of the main big third-party games, right? All I'm saying is they haven't corrected that from what I've seen. That's going to happen again, where 2 years into its life cycle, all the major games, the big AAA games, will not hit the Switch 2. That's fine. The Switch 2 will be fine. I'm just saying it would have been nice if somehow they managed to do that.
Well, that's the strategy, right? I mean, I think if you want to put that level of power in that level of portability, you're looking at $700, $900.
Exactly.
Nintendo's not going to hit that number.
I think Nintendo was never going to do that just because, and I think actually the Switch is going to be better for them not chasing that, because part of the argument for the Switch is its accessibility. It's place as like a second console when you have your PlayStation or your PC or whatever. And having the Switch as the console that you can play while you're mobile and that has weirder and different games that are trying a different thing. And so I always thought them chasing the third party market was a mistake. I don't particularly want to play Call of Duty on the Switch 2. And I think them charging $600, $650, whatever they would have to charge to make that possible, is not worth it. I think it would make the console less successful. So I'm all for a $399 Switch that makes the games run better and doesn't.
You'll be able to buy that a year after it's announced.
Jesus Christ, Yoke. I think you're going to be eating crow pretty hard pretty soon, buddy.
By what? I was typing a comment and missed it.
Yeah, he just said that he's
it's
still
gonna be $500.
Plus. I don't think he understands. Yeah, all right.
Well, I think that kind of goes to what we're saying. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'll just say I feel confident about my $399. I
think you're right. I am now on team $399. But I do think that a $399 console is really, I think that should be the strategy. I don't think it should be let's chase third party and charge people $600. I think that would be a catastrophic misstep.
I think that would be a mistake for Nintendo. Yes.
Yeah. So I think they're making the right choice. They need a cheaper console that people can use as a second console that can run their games. They can make a Pokemon Arceus that actually runs well. And that's good enough. They don't need to chase power or try to play like the Call of Duty games. That's my feeling on it. I'm excited for this console, and I think they're making right decisions, even if that reveal was
lackluster is a generous word.
Well, it's also disappointing because it really was framing out to have the Switch 2 release on relatively the same timeline as the Switch 1, which would have been early spring. And that's not going to happen now. We know that. And so it has slid back even on our own estimations of when this would be, whatever the price is. So I think Nintendo just saying, here's a Switch again, coming 2025. You have told us practically nothing, and I've wasted 2 minutes of my life.
2 minutes. That's great.
You wouldn't have wasted 2 minutes of your life if you went into it with an investigative reporter mind like we did at IGN.
Oh my God.
I think that it is a very telling thing that games journalism has gone and analyzed every frame of this video and made completely crap opinion articles about what's in Mario Kart 9 and what does this button mean and why are they sliding on the desk this way in this video in order to try to get clicks and attention for what Nintendo is not saying about their product. So this is not an area where I feel comfortable debating with you on this, Travis, because I think it's really a shame that we've come to this level on our reporting.
I think you are a spent force.
There's one thing I do want to talk about with Mario Kart 9, which was already rumored to be kind of a launch title. We'll see if that holds true or if they're just teasing it. The only thing I'm interested in is, well, two things. One, there shows 24-player Mario Kart, which could be chaos, and I'm all about that. That'll be fun. Two, Nintendo supposedly, right, from what we're seeing and on their website, is talking about online play. So my hope, as you guys likely know, and you may not be in the same camp, I'm sure I'm in the minority here too, my hope is that they're showing Mario Kart 9 and talking about online because they have made some advancements with the Switch 2 to Nintendo Online. I'm probably going to be an idiot for saying that, but I'm hopeful that's what they're leading towards.
I love your optimism. I don't understand it, but I love it.
I've tried to give Nintendo the benefit of the doubt for like 3 decades now, and I get egg on my face every time.
I think you're still going to have a prompt that says, "Do you want to connect to the internet on your device?" Which is a very funny prompt.
If they tell me to pull out my phone, they're going to get a visit in person this time.
Wait, what did they ask you to pull out your phone?
To do any kind of chatting or any kind of communication.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, that kind of makes sense to me.
But you guys need to promise here today at some point, because we never do that. We have not coordinated on times. We find a time to do a Bitcast Mario Kart 9 stream.
I'm down. I'm always down to do group like gameplay streams. I think it's just like our schedule.
Hope was not as he didn't jump to that. I was hoping
he doesn't want to reveal what his actual starter is. He's ashamed that it's dry bones.
Again, in this particular reveal, I thought that looked like a bad game. I thought it looked essentially worse than Mario Kart 8, which is a difficult way to sell hardware.
Yeah, but I mean, it's Mario Kart and it's their leading. It's going to be good. We know it's going to be good. Come on.
I hope so.
I mean, I think it will. Anyway, we put a poll up on the season gaming side of the house for the price. Let's see what the audience thinks. I did put a $349 option in there just to see if anyone jumps on that. By the way, our bet was, because other people said it could be bundles, they could have multiple versions. Our bet was just the console, not bundled with games, not anything else. Just what is base Switch 2 going to cost?
Yeah, I mean, unless that's the only way they sell it. I mean,
True, unless Mario Kart 9, you're if you want to Switch 2, you're buying Mario Kart 9. I mean, it is Nintendo.
I think they'll have a couple SKUs, don't you?
I would hope so.
I would think so. The rumor is 2 colors and a Mario bundle. That's the rumor.
Very cool.
Let's talk about the colors for a second, right? Because you showed the picture of the Nintendo Switch 1 when Nintendo was being playful and stepping into its toy roots, its card game maker roots. This latest one looks like kind of every ROG Ally, Steam Deck, consumer electronics, portable system like you've ever seen. And I think that's a shame. I think Nintendo going away from that and trying to make everything look boring is a step backwards. I am sure you'll be able to buy whatever color Joy-Cons you want. I'm sure you'll be able to gussy it up. But one of the things I really liked about the Switch when it came out were the bright red and bright blue plastic on the sides of the console.
Me too. That's the one I bought. I agree with you. I think you're right, though. I think they put the blue and the red inside to just be neatsy. But what they're going to do is, if you don't buy the bundle or whatever, we'll see what they release, but they're going to have Joy-Cons right away that you can colorize and accessorize and spend more money. That's what's going to happen.
I hadn't thought about that, the muted tones, but they are going a little bit less playful. And I think that's a fair criticism.
It looks very bland.
Well, as does the logo, right? That giant number 2. I understand it. People have fought me about it. I think it should have been the Super Switch. I think Super does a good enough job as the big number. But what I really hate about that logo is you put the 2 above it, and it reads as 2 Nintendo Switch to me. Like too legit to quit.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool. You're one of the best songs of our time. So
that is not cool.
One of the best songs of our time.
Yeah, I mean, dude, let's talk about Too Legit to Quit right now.
Oh God,
this is now a podcast about that song.
For a fun lore dump, when I do teach my daughter grammar class on Fridays, I do yell up the stairs and say it's MC Grammar and it's grammar time. So you got that now.
There we go. Also, I feel like lore dump is also.
I can get on board with it. I thought it was dumb, Hogue, but I can get on board with it. I like it.
It's because you're a dad.
I came around that fast.
I think lore dump would also be a really good segment for the show where we talk about our personal lives. It's called the lore dump. We just each say one thing about our lives, and then come on, guys. I'm coming up with great material every week, and you guys are just saying no and then filling it with these like bullshit segments where we just fight about the Switch. I'm giving you gold.
All right, Chad, do we want a lore dump? Do you want to learn more about us? Say no, please.
Yeah, you do. You want that lore dump, baby. Dude.
All right. Let's jump over to PlayStation. So
wait, can we do a poll for which one we think Hogue is going to be more pessimistic about? The Switch reveal or what we're about to talk about with PlayStation? Guys, sound off in the chat. Which one is he going to be harsher on?
I think this one that we're about to talk about, but
look, dude, everybody's saying yes to lore dump, by the way, except for Joe Munger because he's got no joy in his life. Everybody else is saying yes. Hell yeah to lore dump.
I'm not responsible for Travis just dumping right on you, people.
And I already have an idea for the video. Like, we'll cut to a graphic and it'll be like a toilet flushing, and then out of the toilet it'll say lore dump.
You gonna create that?
He's an idea man, Ains.
I'm more of a kind of look, guys, I come up with the ideas. I need you to execute. All right, let's do this.
Oh my god. Let's go. So PlayStation. I mean, we've talked quite a few times now, seemingly. I've got the Concord sealed physical copy above me for reasons. But we've talked about their falters here in the PlayStation 5 generation a few times. This week, Jason Schreier breaks the news that 2 more live service games have been canceled within PlayStation. The one from Bend Studio and the one from Bluepoint, one of their projects, which he also stated that Bluepoint was working on a God of War live service title. What the hell that looks like?
Yeah,
I'm not
dude.
sure. But this leaves PlayStation now, just to recap a little bit, and I don't even think this is all of it, but someone sent me this. So The Last of Us Online canceled. Ben's Studio game canceled. Studio London was canceled and then dissolved as a studio. Pixel Opus was dissolved and shut down. Firewalk released Concord. We know how that went. We don't have to cover that again. And then Firewalk was shut down. The other Bluepoint game canceled. Media Molecule is a mess. And Japan Studio, of course, was shut down as well.
The only one I see there that's not on that list is there was a Spider-Man live service game that was leaked as part of the Insomniac leaks.
Yep, that's fair too.
It's also canceled and gone.
Also canceled, yes.
Sweet.
Let's not forget, Destruction All-Stars comes out, does nothing. We know the Concord story, like I said. So
dude, it's this cancel culture. It's all... everything's getting canceled.
Yes, Sony is participating in a certain kind of cancel culture. That is,
they're canceling their own culture.
Is that what cancel culture means? Am I way off here? Do I not understand what that phrase means?
You nailed it.
Okay, great. Hey, can I suggest something? I know I've been suggesting
my God.
a lot of great segments.
I would like to finish setting up this.
How is that not finishing? That was like all of.
I'll grant Travis that one, Ains. I thought that was the conclusion of the prelude.
Go ahead.
All right.
Go on.
I would like to do a scene. I will be a creative director pitching a God of War live service game. Hogue, I'd like you to be like the head programmer, and Ains, can you be the board of directors? All right, I'm pitching to you. Are you guys ready? Let's do a scene.
All the personalities on the board.
Captain. I'll be your mensch.
All right, Hogue. All right, scene. Guys, can somebody say action?
Oh, sure, action.
Hi there. Thank you so much. He like hurt himself doing the clap card.
I went to clap and I went to clap. I was going to hit my mic arm, so I quickly moved and completely missed. So that didn't work. Action.
Amazing.
That's pretty accurate to a board, honestly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking your time today. I have a project that I'm really excited about. I have with me my chief engineer. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Rick.
Yeah. So Rick, obviously he's engineer, not really talkative, but I think you're going to really like what we've been cooking up here. So what do people like about the God of War series? Well, they love that it is a super focused single player action game with like a deep narrative, right? And so we thought, what if a God of War game had none of that? And instead, you and your friends ran around as gods, just killing each other, just killing. It's obviously going to have tons of loot and loot game. And what are we most excited about? I'll save that for our chief engineer. Chief engineer, tell them about the big twist in the God of War Online game. The thing that is really going to spice things up in this game.
It's multiplayer dialogue trees.
Multiplayer dialogue trees. That really is going to be the key to it, because you can decide not, just Kratos saying, I'm going to kill you, but maybe he says, I'm going to beat you to death instead, right? And so we're adding like these layers where you can kind of mix things up. Initial reactions from my board.
That's
brilliant. Do it.
Well,
Greenlit.
no, in all honesty, like the reason this list pisses me off, the reason what Sony decided to do pisses me off is we talked about the dozen live service games however many years ago, right? 1 or 2.
Yeah, a few years ago. Yeah.
And I think that there is something to pursue there. I understand Sony saying, look, Fortnite's making all this money. These various live service games are making all this money. Why can't we do this? We have game developers on our side. But the exact wrong thing to do is, as Travis so adroitly demonstrated, taking our existing single-player intellectual property and saying, let's make those into live service games. No. Concord was a better call than God of War live service. You want to do something new. You want to do something in a different world that doesn't have all the baggage of a single-player game and the disappointment built into the sales pitch of the people that liked the franchise originally that are going to come out and neg your YouTube video that shows the trailer of your God of War live service or your Spider-Man live service, or your Uncharted or your Last of Us live service. Like, this is the exact wrong thing to pursue in a live service, games as a service kind of direction. And it should have been obvious up front. It should have been obvious to the board. It should have been obvious to the CEO. It should have been obvious to the creative officers. And the fact that it wasn't suggests a deep, deep dysfunction at the structural level of the Sony computer entertainment entities, whether that's America or anywhere else.
I approved it and then took my 30 million and ran, so I don't really care.
Yeah. Well, you took your 30 million and then the game got canceled, so I think you have to return that money. I don't know if you,
no,
you
I'm
don't
gone,
get
man.
the money.
I'm out.
You got your golden parachute. That's interesting. Yeah, I hate to agree so much with Hogan one episode, but like,
I mean, he's right. I mean,
there's been a lot of agreement. Okay.
Yeah, he's right. Like,
he's right.
I mean, it's like, if you're going to make a multiplayer bet, there either has to be existing like obvious synergy with a IP you already have, or you just make a new one for the explicit purpose of making that type of game. But this whole like, oh, we're going to piggyback off of our existing IPs that are already popular and make a game that seemingly would not fit at all into that genre or type of thing we want to do, but we're just going to do it anyway, is so like just doomed to fail and kind of like tone deaf on like why people like your games and why they like those franchises and like the whole reason they got behind you. And so I wouldn't go so far as saying that Concord was a good idea, but like you get where they were going with that, right? It's like, oh, this is a new type of game, so we're going to make a new IP to kind of support that. That makes sense. I'm sure they made other decisions that were not good decisions along the way, obviously, but they have to you can see the logic in it, and I cannot see the logic at all in God of War multiplayer game. I cannot see the logic at all in Last of Us Online. Like all these decisions and projects that were canceled, they make no sense to me. The only one I can even imagine an idea for, and I'm not the most creative guy in the world, but like the Spider-Man one, because there's already a multiverse of millions of Spider-Man. So I see that one. It's like, okay, it's going to be like a multiverse game where everybody's a different type of Spider-Man, and it can kind of just make sense. But I have no idea what they were thinking with God of War. Like, what does that even look like?
Did you
like,
not hear multiplayer trees? You didn't hear?
Yeah,
this?
Multiplayer trees. You can decide what type of aggressive you want to be as. Like, are you playing as Kratos? Is it the pantheon of gods? Like, I'm just so confused.
Can you imagine if it were the pantheon of gods? Like all religions, you pick it. It's Smite. It's Smite, but it's AAA. God of War.
God of War MOBA. Nice. Let's do it.
I truly do not understand. Would it be like it takes place during the time of the old games where it's all, Greek mythology and it's during the big war, and so they're all fighting each other? Is it like the new Norse one? I have so many follow-up questions. I have so many follow-up questions.
Hopefully we get one of those like 2 years from now, like everything kind of comes out about it, like, developers.
Yes, I really want to get one of those.
This is a disaster. No, look, I've worked with a lot of companies in my career. I live in Southeast Michigan. I've worked with a lot of big companies that have board of directors and creative explosions that just are complete failures because they're deciding things too much by committee. You understand exactly how the logic works here. We've got these fancy IPs. We're going to use those to bootstrap these other games that we want to sell. We're going to make that Fortnite money. We're going to get that Skrilla, whatever you want to say if you're in those boardrooms. But
We're gonna get that Skrilla is really common in my experience in a boardroom. A lot of people.
That's what I hear my executives
comes up
say
a
all
lot.
the time.
you should talk with investment bankers more often. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's entirely doomed to fail from the offing, from the start. And you need people in the room to say, that's dumb. That is a dumb idea. And clearly that doesn't exist at Sony right now. And that's a big problem. They might correct the ship over a medium to long term. They might not. Because again, I go back to Herman Holst. I don't know this person. I have nothing against him as an individual. But I thought his elevation was weird when Jim Ryan left in the first place. I think it's even weirder now because he is in the room for these conversations. He is in charge of Sony game making right now. And everything failed. Everything. This generation is a tire fire. You can expect almost nothing coming out of Sony first party for the rest of the PlayStation 5 era. And that's the nature of these kinds of bets, because what's the worst of all worlds? You make these big bets, you spend 3 or 4 or 5 years of your studio's lives on them, and then you kill them before they're even born, right? You've masterfully made this the worst, most damaging car crash you could have out of these decisions years ago.
You said Ghost of Yotei, Travis, and that's right. I think Ghost will be great, but to put into
but look at what Sucker Punch
right?
did there, right? So Sucker Punch was brilliant. Sorry, Ains, and took the live service initiative that was clearly coming from the top down and said, we're going to make a little live service multiplayer version of our Ghost game, and we're going to put it as an attachment to our game, and you can see exactly how much people are going to pick that up or not as part of our Ghost of Tsushima. And that's going to allow us the space and the political cachet to go and make what we want to make, which is a single player follow-up, rather than change the entire Ghost franchise into this Legends franchise that clearly didn't have as much pickup as the executives would have thought or hoped it would. So Sucker Punch was deft at handling what was top-down requirements, seemingly, of all of the Sony first-party studios.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, to point that out, you can point at Ghost and say it looks great, and I'm sure it will be great. We've talked about that, but that's going to be, by the time that releases, that's 5 years into the generation, to Hoag's point, right? Like, if you look at the cadence of games that they've released from first party, especially if you want to compare to PS4, whether you consider that right or wrong, PS4 had a great cadence there for a while. It's just been, as Hoag said, it's been a mess, an absolute mess. And I see other people saying, sorry, one other point real quick. I see other people saying, like, well, shouldn't they get credit for recognizing this now and identifying it and canceling it? And it's like, well, but I think you're missing the point of, like, Bluepoint. What we learned from this, right, is Bluepoint had been working on this project since 2022, all in. And let's remember that Sony acquired Bluepoint, right? So you have Bluepoint, an obviously incredibly talented studio, have done some of the best remakes we've seen in the industry. And now you've got 3 years of wasted, dozens of millions of dollars, if not hundreds of $millions for one studio alone. Never mind all these other projects. Yeah, and you're laying off people. You've got multiple studio closures. So I don't really enjoy the people trying to pass this off as, well, they've recognized it and canceled it, rather than, well, and they still released Concord for 2 weeks, which was another disaster. There's no way to look at this, I guess, is what I'm saying, other than what Hoag said, which is incredibly, incredibly poor management.
Really deep dysfunction at Sony. And I don't want to say that. I love my PlayStation. I want to see Sony succeed. But really deep dysfunction is the only way to look at this from the outside. And if I were an investor in Sony, I don't invest in the things I comment on. If I were an investor in Sony, I would be really concerned about what is happening internally to arrive at these decisions over and over and over again.
Yeah. Sorry, Travis.
Yeah, I'm usually like don't presume that a studio is being forced to do something. Sometimes it happens, but a lot of times it's a creative industry and creatives get to choose what they want to make. And sometimes they want to make something different. And the biggest hurdle to doing that is that, like, the fans don't want them to do it, right? So, like, Obsidian wants to go make a multiplayer survival game and they go, no, you only make RPGs. Like, we want RPGs, right? But sometimes developers independently decide that they want to do that, like Obsidian did. And sometimes they want to make multiplayer live service games because those games are very popular. And I'm sure there's lots of developers working at studios who like those games and want to make a game like that, right? It's just, I'm sure there's a thing for it. I think it's very unlikely that every Sony studio simultaneously was like, we want to do that. And so it does have the appearance from the outside looking in of being a forced movement to chase somebody else's business model. Which I think is always a mistake when you're working with creatives, where you live or die by the creatives believing in the thing they're making and being passionate about the thing they're making, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's my biggest problem with this. And I criticize pretty much everyone for chasing somebody else's business. I think when Xbox tries to chase PlayStation's model, those are the worst generations we've had for Xbox. When Nintendo tries to, that's why I don't want them to try to do the third. We just got
finished saying Nintendo shouldn't do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think when they try to do that, when they try to chase somebody else's business, they end up not doing well, which I think is part of what they did with the Wii U. And I think everybody just needs to do the thing that they believe in and hope that that goes with them, rather than looking at like analytics and trends and being like, well, how do we get into the Fortnite business and that sort of thing? And it comes off as a very like sterile, foolhardy way of managing a business that's run by creatives and projects that have to be sold to gamers that like a certain thing and don't like other things. And it's very unfortunate. And I'm sure they will bounce back. They're the leader in the space. They're doing a great job to selling people consoles, and people really like their games. But this is undoubtedly a huge blow that we're probably only seeing the beginning of its impact of. It's going to have long-term repercussions.
I think we're in the middle.
I think it's going to affect their release cadence for a few years, and they're lucky that their brand strength as PlayStation globally is as strong as it is. Really.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. But they should have been making gains this generation because of the difficulties for everybody else, and they are going to not.
Especially coming off the PS4. Yeah.
I mean, Travis, all I was going to add to what you were saying, you covered, is that with a company like Bluepoint, right? You say, yes, we want you to make what you want to make, but certainly all of these companies going to live service at the same time is suggestive of a top-down edict, more than the developers all unilaterally coming to this conclusion at once.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, if you're an executive at Sony deciding what your teams are going to make on a software level, or what you're even going to encourage them to make, you look at a successful project like the Demon's Soul remaster or remake that was really a launch system seller for the PlayStation 5. It's one of the best remakes ever. And you say, Bluepoint, we need you to be making God of War content in a live service environment that we haven't even really sussed out yet. I mean, I just think you're insane. And unfortunately, I have seen the car companies, I have seen the big companies go through this kind of decision-making process. And yes, they might be fine in the long run. Whether or not that involves a bailout of some kind is really a matter of what industry you operate in. But they might be fine in the long run. They might not. Like, people do get too attached to the status quo, or do think that the status quo is just going to be around forever, right? Sony and their PlayStation product was not around forever, will not be around forever. And this is the kind of set of events that can cause this to go away entirely, or to become a third-party publisher, or however you want to look at it. And I hope that doesn't happen. I want there to be competition in the space. I don't think it needs to be specifically on the box level, the console box level. So I do think Xbox and Microsoft can still put pressure on Sony and Nintendo in a competitive way with other things besides selling plastic boxes. But I want there to be competition in this space, and I do not like what I'm seeing from Sony right now. Nintendo is going to be fine. Nintendo has a bad announcement. It doesn't matter. That product is still going to sell like hotcakes. And in fact, I think Nintendo is the most likely beneficiary of a floundering Sony corporation.
Agreed.
But
certainly,
I can't guarantee that Sony's going to be fine. This is a massive error. This is an Xbox One generation style error that this company has put forth for gamers right now.
I think I'm not mad about that, to be honest. Like, I get that people care about the brand, and generally you obviously don't want companies to go out of business and all that. But to your point, Hogue, this was not to your point, Hogue, this was an opportunity for Sony to run up the scoreboard, and I'm kind of glad they didn't, because if you want competition, I mean, this is a good way to remind PlayStation that there's other people out there and give those people opportunities. It's just a shame that, you know, we're seeing Xbox having its own issues right now, which are very separate and very different than the set of issues PlayStation's going through, and that Nintendo's not really competing in the same space as them. And so who is the competitor? You know, if the Stadia were still around, this could have been a great launch opportunity for the Stadia. It just launched at the wrong time, right? So it'll be interesting to see who enters the market or who benefits from this. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if like Xbox survives because PlayStation fumbles the bag here. If you like competition,
Xbox isn't
that's
going
a good
anywhere.
thing.
They're like, we don't have to worry about Microsoft and their cash cow enterprise, right? They're going to be selling Xbox as an app on smart TVs. That's fine. But Sony is not in the same position. Sony has a real chance of going under. Getting out of the PlayStation business, sold. Yes, but Sony might not be Sony in a short period of time from here. And I think that's just a shame.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most likely outcome, if it were that dire, would be that they would get bought by one of these companies that's been trying to get into the game market for years, like Apple or Amazon or something, Google. Somebody would buy them, but I don't think we're gonna suddenly not have a PlayStation ecosystem. It might just change its shape.
It's gonna be interesting.
I just think that people do think that these things last longer or forever in a way that they really don't.
That's for sure true.
Yeah. Yeah,
especially what's happening with Japan's economy right now, which is wild.
Things change, no doubt. And with all that said, we still need Wolverine to release this year and do well, please. Thank you.
I'm less excited about that after Spider-Man 2, but I do love Insomniac, so I hope it's great.
Yeah. Real quick, just to clarify on Bluepoint too, from what I know and what has been shared, Bluepoint, to your point, Hogue, was working on 2 projects. One is their own original content, original IP, supposedly, and one that we now know was this God of War live service. From what's been shared, though, the majority of resources, whether that's 55-45 or 80-20, I'm not sure, majority of the resources were working on the God of War one. So presumably, the majority of their studio's time has been wasted since 2022.
And they're not a Ubisoft. They're not thousands and thousands of people, right? Aren't they like 100?
Yeah, they're relatively speaking, they're a smaller studio. Yes. So just some clarity there that's been shared. And to your guys' point, just to add a further confirmation, we're all in agreement here. If this was a direction from the top down, Shuhei has come out and spoken about this, right? He's come out and made some commentary of like when that Layden, Shuhei, Ryan, her whole stuff happened, that some people within PlayStation kind of got pushed aside for this direction, and well, here they are.
It's puzzling to me that they chose the IPs they did, because all of the news that's come out has been perplexing. Like, I'm just like, what? Like, you wanted to make a multiplayer online game and you didn't like think about Killzone?
Yeah, you got SOCOM,
you already had
Twisted Metal. Where's my Twisted Metal?
Twisted Metal Online got canceled as well.
Yeah,
I know.
They were making that, though. They at least thought of that idea. Like, I didn't hear of. They have a shooter that's been a dormant IP that could have come back in any form,
Resistance,
including a live service game, and they didn't do it. It's just wild to me. It's just wild to me that nobody thought like, hey, why don't we use that old IP that people still like and remember?
But this is where I also get mad at that Shohei interview, right? Because he says that's why we want you to buy the remasters, is we need to fund everything else, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, yeah, that's fine if you're not remastering things that are 3 years old. You've got freaking Psygnosis games that I would buy right now. Upgrade freaking G Police. Let me play that. Upgrade Colony Wars. Let's play some games. Let's not remaster a game that's less than 10 years old.
I get
less
the
than 5
idea
years
there.
old.
Like, hey, we need you to support us. These games are expensive. Like, it's a nice sentiment, but like the whole like, hey, can you please bail us out by paying for the same game twice, and just like swallowing that pill. That's pretty crazy. That's a crazy thing to ask your consumer
Sony
to do.
is crazy right now. That is what is happening.
Yeah. It's funny because coming into this generation, right? Forget about all the projections and everything else, but we always talked about how each generation, it feels like the companies flip-flop with their arrogance or their, this stuff. And it's like, we joked about how PS3 was a punch in the mouth to Sony, and they had to correct, and PS4, they dominated, right? And then here we are. We're 4.5 years into this generation. We're talking about Sony arrogance and getting everything wrong. And it's like,
again, guys, game theory. You're playing the forever game. There's no end to it. You cannot act like you've won, because if you act like a winner, people hate you.
It's so weird. And as Bacon said, which I was going to point out too, is if you think about Bend Studio, right, who'd come off Days Gone, Days Gone 2 gets it wasn't greenlit, right? But we know that they didn't continue with it. And then they've been working on this other live service game for years now, and that's now canceled. It's very, very likely you're going to go an entire generation where one of your first party studios doesn't release a game.
I don't know that Ben survives this, honestly. They've had a somewhat tortured relationship with Sony for a while now. So that would be an unsurprising announcement to see Ben either closed or folded into somebody else.
Yeah.
And I love Days Gone
because
I love Siphon Filter. I would love it if it were not the case.
Yeah, I was going to say, which kind of happened anyway, because I think from what we know, a lot of Ben resources worked on the Last of Us 1 remake, right? So I think that kind of already happened to a degree. Anyway, well, we'll see. We got Ghosty, Gote, and Wolverine. That's what we know. We don't know what else, generally speaking. So we'll see what PlayStation does here later in 2025. So
they could release Concord again at any time. Be prepared.
I'd play it. I'm in.
I would too.
Real quick, shout out to the audience today. Been a really lively audience, and we nearly hit 300 concurrent across both. So thank you for that. Please remember to hit that like button, leave us a comment, chat in on both sides of the house. It obviously helps us a lot, and I usually forget to mention that, so I'm remembering right now.
I was just going to comment, Ains, on how much better and smoother you appear to be at the request for Google button hitting than you were just a few years ago.
I felt weird about it. It's not me. I'm not good at self-promotion. I don't do that well. So
I'll stay.
Yeah. I mean, what am I going to promote? You know what I mean? I mean, look at me. I'm hideous.
How dare you? You're a good-looking guy, all right? I met you in person, and you're large. You're a big meat stick.
Big meat stick. So I just wanted to quickly comment on the developer direct. We did mention this last week with Mikkel here, obviously, because it was announced. It is this week, so we'll talk in detail about it next week. But, January 23rd, which is what day this week? Thursday? Is that right? Thursday. 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern, 6 p.m. British Standard Time. We get Doom the Dark Ages, South of Midnight. We get Clair Obscure Expedition 33 Deep Dive. Come on, game. And we get a brand new game. What has been mentioned since last week when we talked, and I just wanted to run this by you guys, a couple things. One, rumors swirling all over the place that the Oblivion remake that has been long rumored for a while now to be in development is closer than we think, and that may get a tease and or release in 2025. I know Travis and I probably agree on this. We've talked about it, which I wish they were doing Morrowind instead of Oblivion, but here we are. So we'll see.
I don't understand just plucking Oblivion out. Why should I want this?
I think it's because it was the first Elder Scrolls game to be successful on to a wide audience. It was kind of their breakout game, and so Skyrim's already been remastered a million times, and people know that game. So it's like, hey, the game before Skyrim, that when console gaming and gaming in general was still more niche, you replay that. But Morrowind, nobody knows what that was.
I think that's probably fair. And Oblivion has that history as being the 2006, which it was, but the launch game with 360, which really blew up, and it has that association with Xbox for right or wrong. So I don't know.
I will say, Shivering Isles, one of the best expansions ever made. If that's in it, I'm going to replay that.
If it's all in one nice fancy package,
it's gonna be
optimized,
yeah.
Okay,
that could be
all
huge.
right.
I would play Shivering Isles again. That is a fantastic expansion.
Well,
I also kind of curious
remake. So do we know what?
We don't know anything.
A different type of thing. We don't know anything.
It's a rumor.
It's definitely not a brand new game for purposes of that fourth slot, right?
No, this is separate. Oh, I don't know why I keep hitting this today. This is
action.
This is separate from that. So the fourth game is, as it says on Xbox Wire, as I said last week, is a brand new game. What's come out since is that it is supposed to be a long-running IP, Japanese IP. So the current rumor, again, we're talking rumors, but the current rumor is we could see new Resident Evil. So remember, we're expecting Resident Evil 9 at some point to debut this year, as well as the next remake, which could be Code Veronica. So maybe we get Resident Evil. That'd be awesome. I'd be pumped about that. Or people are thinking it could be something new in the JRPG space, Xbox has really been trying to go down that route of having some kind of JRPG recognition on their side. So that's the current thinking, Hope.
I think the most convincing that I saw, at least rumored over the week, was a new Ninja Gaiden. We know that they're working on that. They have licensed out for a 2D Ninja Gaiden.
Rage Hound, yes.
But something like Black, something like the glory days of the 3D Ninja Gaidens could be cool for the Xbox right now. One thing I wanted to ask about this question, because all the rumors have been flying around and everything else, is do you think it's a good idea for Xbox Direct to have that empty box that has a question mark in it and have these kinds of guessing games played around their showcase? Is it good because it engenders this kind of excitement, or is it bad because when you do this, it's almost always going to be disappointing for a huge amount of people? And was it better last year when you didn't know that was going to happen at all, and the little marker just went kind of off the screen and came back with Visions of Mana?
Well, there still might be a 5th game.
I think that's where the Oblivion thing's coming from. Is like they may still have another surprise in addition. But
yeah,
I don't know. For me, I don't get super invested. I see your point. It's like you start all these rumors, and then like if I'm hoping for Resident Evil 9 and it's something else that I don't care about, it's like whatever. But I don't know. I think to your point, they're just trying to drive interest and curiosity to get more people to watch the show. But
yeah, and I think if they, I get your point, Hogue, that it could be a worse strategy if they don't have a 5th secret thing. I kind of think that they will, but we'll see. But I mean, I will say the 3 we know for sure, this is going to be a pretty stacked show. I've seen most of these games. Like we already talked about South of Midnight, Doom Dark Ages.
Doom's going to rock.
Very familiar with the dev team, people working on that, and they're going to crush it. And Clair Obscur is like one of my most hyped games of 2025. So I'm very excited by this lineup. And
yeah, me too. It's going to be a good show.
Yeah, it's going to be a good show. I'm really a fan of Xbox's format here.
Me too. If we get, whether it's Ninja Gaiden, I always say Gaiden, Ninja Gaiden, Resident Evil, or even if it's something else that I'm not interested in, like a JRPG, it doesn't matter. It's still going to be a great show. It's a good lineup, like you said.
As we learned, Ains, the AI is I, pronounced I, like samurai.
And
for Gaiden, and the EI is A.
Do we have that right? Everyone corrected us last time. So
it's definitely Yote. I know that.
Yote. So EI
I associate it with Taylor Swift now.
Yeah. Yotete.
She has a cameo in it, from what I hear.
Yeah, EI is the A sound, and AI is the I sound.
I think I just grew up because I almost just said it. Ninja Gaiden. I mean, I've played since I was a little kid. So, but I always called it Gaiden. So it's just
certainly in the elementary schools, it was Gaiden. We didn't know how to say that word.
Yeah. I used to like Mario. I used to call Mario like all the time.
Crazy.
And my buddy gave me shit about it. He's like, "It's Mario, dude." And I'm like, I had to train myself to say Mario. So anyway, we have a super chat, Cody Bishop. So I'm sorry, man. We don't talk about that stuff here. This is a gaming show, so it's a super chat around some legal stuff with the incoming president-elect, and I'm not going to get into it on the show. So I feel bad because you spent $4.99. I'm happy if you want to literally DM me. I'll PayPal the money back to you, so you don't feel like you wasted it. But we're not going to get into that on the show, man. So just calling that out. So reach out to me. My DMs are open. Seriously, go on Twitter, go on Blue Sky, DM me. I'll give you the money back.
Hey, I'm going to start DMing you every week.
I'm not bringing that up on the show. So sorry about that. But thank you for tuning in, regardless. Hogue, I'm leaving it up to you, my friend.
Yeah.
Do you want to touch on this? Should we just go ahead and move on?
We can talk about this. I think it can be short. I know a number of people are very interested in the various ban statements that have come out on social media today about TikTok not operating anymore because it's been banned because of a law that was passed last April. Others, like Marvel Snap, issuing similar statements. There have been movie editing software statements that have come out that have said the same. And a lot of people have reported on this as those things being banned. And the one thing I wanted to clarify here is that when that law went into place, it said that TikTok and ByteDance as named entities would not be able to be supported in various ways by various network apparatuses. But the Biden administration over the last couple of days and the incoming Trump administration have both said that they don't look to actually enforce that particular ban. So one of the things that's happening right now online, from the ByteDance side of things, from TikTok coming offline, from Marvel Snap coming offline, is in fact essentially performance art being done by the ByteDance companies to make you feel what they think is an unjust position that they've been put into, right? And I know reasonable minds can differ even on that as to whether this law is a good thing, whether ByteDance should have divested of its interest in TikTok or the publisher of things like Marvel Snap or what have you. But the point is right now that nobody is forcing this company to do any of these things. They just want it to be visual and seen by as many people as they can. They want you to feel their pain, that they think that this is an unjust situation that they've been put into to be forced to divest their companies and their assets by the U.S. government. And so that's why they are hitting these buttons. And when you see reporting that says Marvel Snap has been banned, just think of this particular conversation and understand that it isn't being banned by the U.S. government. There's no officials going out and knocking on doors and hitting baseball bats on servers or anything like that. They are doing this deliberately to try to point out that the law could be read this broadly if someone were so inclined to do this. Ordinary operations would not have these companies do this. This is essentially a marketing effort by ByteDance, and one that I'm amenable to, one I'm actually sympathetic to. I think this law is ill-informed. I think it's over really broad. There's a whole sorts of political editorializing I could do on this. Reasonable minds can differ on even that. But here, what's happening right now, this morning and afternoon, is essentially a performance stunt, a marketing stunt, performance art. That's really all I wanted to say on it, Ains.
Oh, I think that's, as you always do in these cases, my friend. That's very well said. I think you summed it up nicely. And I'm no expert in this space, but as we talked about prior to the show, I said this feels theatrical. And I think that's essentially what you just said. So I just wanted to let you speak on it because I know we did get some people asking about it. It affects a game in Marvel Snap, so I figured we'd quickly comment on it. And since we have you here, it's great that you can provide a nice little summary like you just did. So
yeah, no, and I might do a virtual legality on it. Yeah. I don't know. I hadn't decided. I certainly wasn't going to do it until I saw what was happening this morning. I had not anticipated that this is the step that ByteDance would take. One of the things that I really thought would happen is that this would go forward and really nothing much would occur. I didn't think that Biden and his administration would enforce this on his last day in office. I didn't think Trump and his administration would enforce it on his first day in office. So there's a little bit of leniency that can be given by the incoming administration for the dates here. And so I really anticipated that nothing much would happen. But I was wrong there because this is essentially a marketing opportunity by TikTok and ByteDance in this particular capacity. So that's what they are using it for. I don't think that's great. I don't think that's a good way to have these things reported on. But one thing I did say on Twitter/X earlier this morning is it does feel to me like those times when YouTube tells you about COPPA and what you have to tell it about when you're making content for kids, or what it says about the DMCA and how it's forced to take things down, that those are not accurate readings of the law. And then when you see these companies of all stripes tell you what's happening under the law, you have to treat it with a grain of salt, just like any other reporting that you see out there, because they are trying to put themselves in the most sympathetic light when they tell you about these things. And COPPA doesn't quite require YouTube to do what it says. The DMCA certainly doesn't require YouTube to do what it says. And ByteDance is not being required to do what they are telling you they are being required to do right now. And anybody that reports on it differently is being wildly incurious by how they report on it.
Perfectly fair. Well summed up. Cool. Well, there you go. All right, boys. I think that's going to wrap us up for the week. It's good having you back, Travis. Good to be with the three of us again. Good topics this week. I don't have much to call it. Like I said at the top of the show, on the SG side, there's a lot of big games getting ready to release in the coming weeks. So the review season is starting. So a lot of good things coming over the next month plus, and probably once that starts, it'll be the whole year. So just keep it, we'll talk about those things as we go. Well, I'll be back next week. I would say check out our fantasy draft on the Nerd Chat, who I promoted at the top of the show. Have some fun over there. It was an off the rails, ridiculous show. I even put on my Leon Kennedy wig for it, which, by the way, anyone guy, female, whatever you are, that has hair that's in your face. How do you put up with that? That's the most annoying thing I've ever felt in my life. It drives me
Tuck it
nuts.
under a hat.
Fair. I understand. So
Hair in general.
anyway,
huh?
Travis, what do you want to shout out, man?
Yeah, you can go and read my Aloft review. You can read my review in progress of the early access Hyperlight Breaker. And then, yeah, I've got new more reviews and previews coming up. It's going to be a very busy second half of January and February, and I don't know if I can talk about a lot of that yet, but I got some big reviews coming up, including Avowed and some other games that I'm sure I'm forgetting. Tales from the Shire is one of them. So, yeah.
Cool.
Fun games coming
Very
up.
cool.
Very exciting year for me.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. The year is looking absurd with games. By the way, I forgot to mention our poll on the Switch 2 price. I'm gonna go ahead and end it now. The final results are there. It is. So $399 is the choice, 58%, 21%, $499 is second. $349 hanging in there, $299. Very few people think it's going to be $299. So the main choices are $399 or $499. So there you go. Yeah. And by the way, literally as we're ending the show, Nissa just said they literally just lifted the ban on TikTok.
Oh, they got unbanned. Crazy.
Well, again, the ban doesn't exist. I'm reading up on this when I saw those in the comments. Their statement here is as follows. In agreement with our service providers, TikTok is in the process of restoring service. We thank President Trump for providing the necessary clarity and assurance to our service providers that they will face no penalties, providing TikTok to over 170 million Americans and allowing over 7 million small businesses to thrive. So part of this particular marketing stunt appears to have been to put positive spin on Trump's involvement here. Again, I already told you, neither Biden nor Trump was likely to enforce any of this, as they had already said in statements to the press. And so this was a bit of performance art, seemingly to the benefit of President Trump. You can feel whatever way you want to feel about that in the chat or the comments, but that appears to be what happened here.
Yeah,
so
more theater.
The ban was lifted insofar as the ban never existed, and they want to credit President Trump, incoming President Trump, with assurances that the ban was never going to exist, essentially.
Yeah.
The ban was real, but it was done by ByteDance.
ByteDance.
They banned their own product in the US.
Oh well, what are you gonna do? I don't even want to comment more on it, but anyway, let's close it out. Hogue, what do you got, my friend?
Well, I have actually been pretty out there with videos as of the last couple of weeks. I've gotten 5 or 6 videos done. If you're interested in Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni versus Ryan Reynolds versus everyone on Earth, at least in Hollywood, please do check out more than 4.5 hours of streaming that I've already done on the channel. I still have 3 lawsuits to go because this is absolutely crazy. I'm very interested in it. It's an interesting set of defamation, extortion, and other claims. And if you're more interested in video games and law, I just did a video on Tencent and its designation as a military company for purposes of the National Defense Authorization Act, and what that means and how Chinese and national security interests are impacting court decisions on these topics, as well as a previous video I did on the Assassin's Creed Shadows delay and the state of Ubisoft in 2025. So check out those videos. There will also be some Hogue appearances on Last Stand Media. I just taped a constellation that covers things like TikTok, covers things like the Sony cancellations, covers some other stuff that you might be interested in. So that'll go live on their channel, I think relatively soon with all this TikTok news. I never know what Colin's going to do with those. But you can check that out as well. So yes, ran the firm, did a bunch of client and law stuff, and taped something like 8 to 10 hours of video this week. So I'm getting back to it, trying to do
yourself.
Trying not to fall asleep at my desk.
Stroke number 2, let's go.
I know I'm not doing Travis's 28 reviews a year or whatever, but I am making videos as much as I can.
He only hit like 24. Okay, don't overstate his.
It was 25. Let's chill on the smear.
I knew it was in the 20s. It's still incredible, man. I don't even have any idea.
It is a review every 2 weeks. It's
pretty
crazy.
easy.
Yeah.
Don't have anything else in your life.
All right, chat. You've been awesome today. Great to see everyone hanging out with us. A good conversation. So thank you for that. As always, appreciate the generosity. Please appreciate the feedback. And we will be back next Sunday as review season and game release season starts to ramp up. So it's gonna be fun. As always, enjoy your week, enjoy your games, try to do things you enjoy and make time for them. And we will see you next Sunday morning. Cheers.
Sorry, Lions.